Alrighty, greetings and salutations everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff and welcome to our Sunday morning live stream for week 12 of the 2024 fantasy football season. That's right, it is Sunday of week 12. So what does that mean? We are all scrambling to set our potential lineups and hopefully get ourselves one step closer to securing a fantasy playoff spot and hopefully getting that much, closer to capturing a 2024 fantasy football championship. Over the course of the next 3 consecutive hours, we're answering any and all fantasy football questions. So whether that question is quarterbacks, running backs, wide receiver, kicker, defense, flex, all of it will be eventually touched upon. Now, as you guys can see to the right side of the screen, we have up-to-date rankings as of this morning regarding all of the primary individual positions. So my top 36 running backs, followed by wide receiver, quarterback, kicker, defense, etc. That's typical. If you guys have any interpositional questions, these will answer it in regards to the available players that, again, have not played yet as of thus far. I no longer include players who have already participated. There are 4 players from the Thursday night matchup are not in the rankings because I just want to provide more players to you guys. Again, these are the initial rankings. We'll continue to answer questions, and whether I'm answering your question directly and or via just proxy of somebody else's question, make sure that when you send in a message, whether it is super chat to gain original priority or potentially in the live chat, make sure you include your scoring format. Half PPR, full PPR, standard. The more context you provide, the easier it'll be. Outside of that, for those of you who are Patreon members, the rankings have been posted earlier this morning. And for those of you who have signed up using code Andrew via Underdog as early as August 1st, 2024 to yesterday midnight, those rankings have been sent out. Make sure you check your spam folder. That was sent out earlier this morning around 2 a.m. or more like 1 or 2 a.m. Either way, that pretty much covers it. Let's get into talking all things fantasy football in regards to the first questions of the day. First question belongs to Trey, who sends in a question. So I found your question before the stream even started because I saw it was in the live chat, so I copied it, put it in a notepad just so I didn't lose it. All right, Trey's question says, in a full PPR, we have K. Dotton over TJ Hawkinson, which I say yes. Now, hear me out. TJ Hawkinson will be absent of Josh Oliver. Josh Oliver, over the course of the last month of the season, even with TJ Hawkinson back in the lineup, has been seeing himself a vast majority of the overall opportunities within the tight end receiving game within the offense, primarily because the offense itself wants to utilize a lot of 12 personnel, one running back, 2 tight end sets. But in this circumstance, I still believe Hawkinson, in comparison to Otton, I'd prefer to have Otton based on the overall opportunity share that has been highly consistent over the course of the last month of the season. Even with Evans returning, it's not going to negatively affect Otton to an extent to where he disappears and his value has been sapped away. So K. Dotton would be the preferred of the two, but they're both great plays. As for your next question, can I trust Ladd McConkey at wide receiver 2 still? Absolutely. Look, I've moved up Ladd McConkey a considerable margin. I've actually moved up both of the overall wide receivers. Well, I guess all the receiving options. Disley, Ladd, and Quentin Johnston, and Justin Herbert are all fantastic plays. Dobbins is always going to be very much so dependent on those touchdowns, especially considering they take on Baltimore, which is not an easy matchup considering the fantasy points they allow to opposing running backs over the course of the season. So yeah, I would say absolutely. I'm 100% in on starting Ladd McConkey this week in one of the best matchups you could possibly ask for in one of the highest potential scoring games for the weekend. And then your next question says, RB2 and flex out of JT, Hunt, and Tracy. I will play Hunt and I will play JT in that exact order. Thank you. Appreciate it, Trey. Have a great weekend. Soul L315 sends in a question. Thank you, Soul. Soul says, start 1, Hill or Sutton. Between the two of them, I would prefer to play Tyreek Hill. Regardless of scoring format, that is the preferred of the 2 receiving options. Thank you. Now, as to your next question, flex pick, Bucky, Tracy, or one of the other Hill so I'm not sure what your scoring format is, Soul, but in the event in which you are in a full PPR scoring format, I would play both of the receivers. In the event in which you are not, and perhaps you play in a half PPR or perhaps a standard scoring league, or a league in which you maybe get an extra point per first down or something of that extent, there could be a multitude of different potential aspects to your scoring format. But if it's not a full PPR, I'd play Bucky. If it is a full PPR, I'd play Sutton alongside a Hill in that situation. Thank you, Soul. Appreciate it. All right, moving on to a question that came in from Luis, who says, Nix or Jaden? I think they're both fantastic plays. I don't think there's a wrong answer between the two of them. As of right now, the way that I've approached it is I'd like to play Nix. Look, I talked about this a little bit yesterday throughout the live stream, and I'll continue to kind of harp on it. And I even mentioned this on Thursday's overall tight end and quarterback rankings video. In regards to Bo Nix, Bo Nix, thus far this season, has the most rushing touchdowns amongst all Denver Broncos. So he leads the team in terms of rushing touchdowns. Not only is he going to get himself that category implemented, but additionally on top of that is always going to be, implicated for his passing touchdowns and his extra rushing yardage. So that in itself is very valuable. Now, when you compare him to Jaden Daniels, there's a potential in which Jaden Daniels could end up succeeding within this game just as much as Bo Nix will have going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. So both of them have that upside of potential. The only issue slash concern that I end up with primarily revolves around the idea that if the Washington Commanders purely just run the ball down the Cowboys' throat, which they're certainly capable of accomplishing with Eckler and Brian Robinson, could this be a game very similar to last week where CJ Stroud doesn't do anything fantasy-wise because he just hands it off to Mixon and he scores 3 touchdowns. So in the case of the Washington Commanders offense, they hand it off to Eckler and Jeremy McNichols and Brian Robinson for 4 straight quarters, and Jaden Daniels disappears. And he doesn't, meet his rushing upside. Like, I know for a fact that without a doubt, if the Denver Broncos want to score, it has to all be done through Nix. On the other end, in the Jaden Daniels situation, as we've seen as of late, it's not a necessity for him to be heavily involved, especially in an advantageous matchup as such. So between the two of them, I prefer Nix ever so slightly. Next question says Flex 2, Jonnu, Abdullah, Dobbs, or Adunze. Not sure what your scoring format is. Again, guys, you got to include your scoring format. Otherwise, I'm just going to assume. So I'll meet everyone in the middle in this case, Luis. Let's say it's a half PPR scoring format. In that case, I'm playing Jonnu Smith, and I'm probably following it up with playing Adunze. That's the way I go about it. Even in a full PPR, I probably feel comfortable doing the same exact thing. Thank you. All right, Matthew Wallace sends in a question. Matthew says, good morning, Andrew. I have a few auto starts, such as Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Bo Nix. But how would you line up Ladd, Jacoby Myers, Downs, Disley, Hunter Henry, Quentin Johnston between the 2 wide receivers and 1 flex? I think it's pretty simple in my mind. Between those available options, Ladd McConkey and Josh Downs are, let me see here. Where do I have Josh Downs in my half PPR in comparison? Yeah, Downs is going to be a little bit lower than Quentin Johnston. Moved him up. So for the purposes of just kind of making sure you don't over expose yourself to one singular team, like my initial rankings at this point, Matthew Wallace, includes Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnston being your wide receiver 1 and 2. Then within your flex position, I'm going to go Downs because I don't want to overexpose myself to playing Disley there within the flex position. So those are the 3 that I would suggest as of right now. Obviously, you have your auto starts, but I think these 3 are also auto starts in my mind. Ladd, Quentin Johnston, Downs. Those are your 2 wide receivers in flex. Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate it. All right, continuing on, we had a question that came in from Justin Wright. Thank you, Justin. It says Chuba or Reed in the flex. All right, let me see both of my ranking systems, and let me see where I have them in a full PPR, and I will convey that, and then we will continue on. Okay, so in terms of full PPR, Jaden Reed, let's go find them right here. Okay, so Jaden Reed is certainly ahead of him in a full PPR. That's not even remotely close. Now, as for the half PPR scoring format, and the reason why, again, so yesterday, throughout the live stream, we talked about this, and we talked about this also a little bit on Friday night's live stream in regards to the value of 49ers and Cardinals, Seahawks, and Green Bay Packers. So earlier this week, there was an indication that there's a possible weather concern for both those games. So specifically, the San Francisco 49ers traveling on over to the Green Bay Packers, and the Cardinals traveling to the Seattle Seahawks. Those are the only 2 games in which there are rain concerns. Now, as the week has progressed, San Francisco at Green Bay is now a 7% chance of rain. Again, very low percentages in comparison to Arizona versus Seattle, which is still 60%, which again, based on the overall report that I'm reading, it's not even going to hit 10-mile-per-hour winds. It's going to be a soft rain. It's not going to be that big of a deal. So I'm not even concerned about any of these players to where I'm ranking them lower because of weather concerns. So if anybody asks, or if anybody in the future of today's live stream mentions, hey, Andrew, X, Y, or Z, are you worried about this weather? I'm making a blanket statement at the moment that I have no concerns about the weather as it currently stands based on the reports that I have seen. Now, in the case of Chuba Hubbard versus Reed in a half PPR scoring format, let's see where I have them in comparison to one another. Let's see, where's Chuba? Okay, so Reed is right there, and Chuba's slightly behind him. Reed is, at least in a full PPR, it's like pretty wide gap between the 2 of them in terms of value. In a half PPR, they're ranked 5 separate. Yeah, there's 5 ranks that separate the 2. But I'd still do prefer Reed in this circumstance. Thank you, Justin Wright. Appreciate it. All right, Richard K sends in a question. Says, "Happy early Thanksgiving, Andrew." Thank you, I appreciate that, Richard. Well, listen, we'll get to Thanksgiving when we get there this upcoming Thursday. Again, I'll be live streaming here on the channel starting at 6:30 a.m. or maybe even 7 a.m. We'll see. But there's 3 Thursday games, so you'll see me on Thanksgiving. But I appreciate that, Richard. Thank you. In a standard, I have 2 wide receivers on bye with Neighbors. Will Neighbors play? Yeah. So based on a report that we saw last night and where we've pretty much been trending all week long, is that we're very confident that Malik Neighbors is going to play. That was never really in question. Even though he did not practice all week long, he even personally said that he's going to play. Obviously, they're going to try to warm him up before the game just to ensure that he's ready to go. They don't want to, of course, force any injury that could cause any sort of repercussion of throwing him out there. But the assumption is that he's absolutely going to play. I've gone ahead and moved him down within my rankings in terms of like these rankings right here, which you'll see. In comparison to where I had him earlier this week, I had him, on Wednesday, really confidently within the top 24, considering, of course, the Tommy DeVito situation. Additionally, on top of that, the uncertainty of his injury, not really a matter of as to whether he's going to play or not, but rather a matter of how effective is he going to be with the current injury that he's dealing with. Considering all that, again, I still expect him to play, but I've moved him down accordingly in order to kind of mitigate those concerns from my own end. Thank you. All right, moving on to a question that comes in from Tommy Gunn. Thank you, Tommy. Tommy says, "Think Neighbors will play?" That's another question. Wow, okay, yeah, absolutely, guys. Yeah, expect him to play. If he is your primary wide receiver, have him in your lineup. There's no concern there. Now, in regards to Week 12, again, NFL Week 12, as it currently stands, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Giants play at 10 a.m. So throughout this live stream, whether you do hang out or not, or you potentially move on, we will get a report in which probably I would say in an hour. But let's say in 2 hours at base minimum, by 9:15 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we will have confirmation whether or not he's going to play. And I guarantee you he's going to play. There's no way that unless again he's going to re-aggravate that injury during warmups, which again I doubt. But there's always the possibility of that. But if you want to keep an eye on it, I'll be here monitoring the situation as we progress. As for your second question, Tommy Gunn, Disley or Otten this week? Between the two of them, again, the rankings are pretty much right here, but they do alter depending on scoring format, just a slight bit. Let me see here. So in a half PPR, I still have Cade Otton as my number 5. In a full PPR, I have Cade Otton. Yeah, Will Disley still 6, Cade Otton still 5. Not much variable change there. The only thing that changes is like Hunter Henry moves up in a full PPR, so does Hawkinson. So there's just a little bit of a variable change in those scenarios, but in terms of Otton, still very confident with him going into this week. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Let's scroll back up here. We move on to Marco, who sends in a question. Thank you, Marco. Appreciate it. Says, full PPR, Neighbors or CeeDee Lamb? And happy Sunday. Thank you very much. Happy Sunday to you as well. And all of you, of course, as we listen, anytime there's football on Sunday, it's a happy Sunday, right? Even if we lose, again, there are so few football Sundays over the course of the season, or the year. I was going to say season, but over the course of the year that we got to appreciate them all. But in regards to this week, yeah, I'd rather play CeeDee Lamb. Thank you. Moving on to, by the way, I mentioned it earlier in the week. I said that CeeDee Lamb, the only reason I would ever pivot away from him this week is if, in fact, Marshawn Lattimore was to play. There's no Marshawn Lattimore. I have no issue at all with CeeDee Lamb taking on Benjamin St. Juste this week. Thank you. Like to Jeans sends in a question. It says, PPR, with Devontae Smith out, Quentin Johnston or J-Mo? I prefer to play Quentin Johnston. Thank you. Again, they're both fantastic plays. You know what they're both capable of. They're both very much so touchdown dependent, and they both have the ability to take one pass to the house and, of course, make their entire week. Obviously, Quentin Johnston has less target competition and has a better matchup. That's why I lean in his direction. Thank you. Joey Boy sends in a question. Says, in a half PPR start 3, we have Sutton, JSN, Downs, Jennings. Thanks. Absolutely no problem. The 3 that you mentioned to begin with, Sutton, JSN, and Downs, would be the 3 that I suggest. I still believe that Brandon Allen should be a solid quarterback. But again, for me to rank guys like Jennings, Debo, Kittle, McCaffrey as high as I would with Purdy active would be disrespectful to Purdy outright, because again I do not believe that Brandon Allen is capable to putting up Purdy-esque volume and production, and I don't expect Kyle Shanahan to be able to just let Brandon Allen loose. He is a liability at times. Over the course of his career, he has not been the greatest quarterback. There's a reason why he's been a career backup for quite a while now and hasn't started in the league in a hot minute here. So yeah, Sutton, JSN, and Downs are my preferred of the 4. Thank you. Moving on to Chiefsaholics Lawyer, which I always love that name, man. I always love that name. It says full PPR, flex, McLaurin or Walker. Okay, let's see where I have them ranked in the full PPR scoring format. So McLaurin sits there, and Kenneth Walker just slightly below him. So 26 compared to 31. They're both in the same tier. So if you wanted to play Kenneth Walker, I don't have an issue with it. If we were going to be in a situation where we had one of those Kenneth Walker games where he caught the ball 6-7 times, like he has proven to do earlier this season, I'd be very confident sticking with him in that scenario. But considering, again, that is more of a fleeting situation and more of like an anomaly, I'll lean towards playing Terry McLaurin today. Advantageous matchup. Should be a one-sided affair and should get his, production at base minimum. I mean, I'm thinking like a 15-point week should be easy for Terry McLaurin at base minimum. If he's not able to accomplish that, where are we at with Terry McLaurin? The offense is cooked. Thank you. All right, we had a question that came in from Romeo. Let's see here. What I need to do is I need to reload my YouTube page here because it crashed again, as it typically does. I'm going to see if Romeo typed in the chat somewhere. Okay, so Romeo, I do see that you sent in a super. What I do not see is your question in the live chat because it wasn't attached to the original super. If you could do me a favor and just type it in the chat, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Until then, we'll continue answering questions, and then we'll go ahead and swing on back once you've typed that in. Thank you. Moving on to a question from Jonathan Lee. Thank you, Jonathan. Full PPR, flexing Jennings, Worthy, or Abdullah. In a full PPR, I believe I'm going with Jennings there. Again, I still have confidence within the receiving core to where, I'm not playing Worthy. I'm not playing Abdullah in comparison to Jennings. I will still play Jennings in this circumstance. With no Jair Alexander out there, I still believe that Jennings is a solid play. Kenny23332 says, PPR, pick my flex. Hubbard, Ramondre Stevenson, Quentin Johnston. Cool. So let me see who I have ranked higher, Ramondre or Quentin Johnston in a full PPR. Johnston as of right now, I have Ramondre at 37 and Quentin Johnston at 40. Very close, but I do prefer Ramondre in that situation as of this week. Thank you. So the order in which I would go about it, Kenny, is Ramondre, Quentin, Hubbard. Thank you. Big Al 9 sends in a question. Says, need two, Jennings, Adunze, or Dobbs. Yeah, as of right now, between those three, I'm playing the first two names that you mentioned, Jennings and Adunze. Those are the two preferred. As for and then it says standard 6 point per touchdown, 1 point for 10 yards. Yeah, you're good to go there. So under the assumption, again, there's no point per reception situation, you're still solid going with Jennings and Adunze in this circumstance. Thank you. Hodge, BDJ, sends in a question. It says pick 4 in a full PPR. We have Reed, Downs, Quentin Johnston, Jennings, and Hopkins. Cool. So in a full PPR scoring format, of the available options you have, I am playing Reed, Downs, Quentin Johnston, Jennings. Those are the 4 out of the 5. Hopkins would be the odd man out. Thank you, Hodge. Appreciate it. Austin M has sent in a super. Let me see if I can find your question in the live chat, Austin. All right, don't see your name in the chat, Austin, but if you could do me a favor and type in your question, that'd be greatly appreciated. While I'm here, let's see if Romeo has sent in his question. Romeo says, in a 10-team half PPR, start 8. Okay, very well. I'm 7-4. My team consists of Lamar, Christian McCaffrey, Kyron, Barkley, Tracy, Bigsby, Puka, Neighbors, Adams, Watson, Njoku, Goddard. Trading for a big 4 tight end didn't work. Okay, understood. Yeah, listen, if we're starting 8, for example, right? So Lamar's 1, Christian McCaffrey and Barkley are 2 and 3. Then we're playing Puka and Neighbors as 4 and 5. I don't know who I'm assuming your start 8 is with multiple flex in this scenario, okay? So then we're playing Goddard as our tight end under the assumption that Njoku didn't already play this week. And then your 2 flexible options in specific order would be Kyron 1, Tracy 2, and let's say, for example, you already played Njoku, then Goddard would be 3 at that point. Thank you, Romeo. Appreciate it. And then you had a follow-up, says, are tight ends good to go for rest of season? Yeah, your tight ends are fine. I have no issue with Njoku and Goddard rest of season. They're fantastic there. And then it says, Romeo, somebody asked Romeo Dobbs or Jennings in a PPR. I'd rather play Jennings as of this week. Romeo Dobbs, the issue with him is that there's just so many pieces within the Green Bay Packers offense that could have a viable week. But again, there's so much unpredictability because the target opportunity is so erratic at times that it just makes it difficult to be able to even predict who's going to have those weeks. All right. Austin M sends in his question. Says, here's my question, Andrew. Tua or Goff to replace Allen on bye 6 point per passing touchdown. Also, bench one full PPR, Hopkins, DJ, or Jawan Jennings. Okay, understood. So, to answer your first question, I prefer to play Goff over Tua Tagovailoa. Second question, I prefer to sit Hopkins and play DJ Moore and Jawan Jennings. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, we took care of those. We continue on. The next question comes in from, after Big Al Hodge. Okay, we have Grant. Grant sends in a question and says sit one in a full PPR. We have Neighbors, we have Terry, we have JSN, we have Hunt, and we have Aaron Jones. Cool. In a full PPR scoring format, under the assumption that Neighbors is good to go, there's no setback of any sort, Aaron Jones is the odd man out there. So he would be the one that sits out of the bunch. Thank you, Grant. Appreciate it. Bubblegum Cowboy says Tracy Jr. or Anthony Richardson in my super flex spot in a half PPR. I will always, I wouldn't say always, but I am more inclined to pivot in the direction of always. Always is going to be the word that I'm going to continue to use. But I highly prefer playing quarterback in a super flex format. Therefore, I'm going to suggest you play Anthony Richardson in this circumstance. Thank you. Josh Holt sends in a question. It says, Tua or Stroud? I prefer to play Tua as of this week. Stroud is still a solid option considering the Tennessee matchup. And quite frankly, that secondary as a whole has not been great this year because of the injuries that they've accrued. So Tennessee is certainly going to be vulnerable. But in this scenario, still prefer Tua Tagovailoa against the Patriots. And in your follow-up says, I can also pick up Geno on waivers. Yeah, look, at this point, what you'll see from the rankings over here in regards to the quarterback conversation. For Tua Tagovailoa, again, he is still the preferred because of how well he's played as of late. I do prefer him over Geno. I do prefer him over the potential of Stroud. So yeah, I mean, like Stroud right now sits as my number 17 overall quarterback. He could probably, at very best, I could rank him at 15 at very best in terms of projection, but I don't choose to because I don't believe that he's a solidified enough option within the week. So yeah, I'm still going to roll with Tua there. Josh, thank you. We had a follow-up question from another Josh with a 0 instead of an O. It says, full PPR, Taylor or Reed in the flex? Let me see where I have them ranked. In a full point per reception league, I have Jonathan Taylor at 32 and I have Jaden Reed at 33. So Jonathan Taylor is one spot ahead of him. They're in the same tier. If you want to play Reed over Taylor, I have no issue with it, but otherwise I have Taylor projected for more points. Thank you. Moving on to a question from Shrey E, who says, PPR, pick 2, Josh Downs, Tracy, Lamb, Bucky. Cool. Of those available options, the 2 highest ranked players I have are Lamb and Bucky. Lamb is a for sure auto start there. Let me look at the difference or the distance between Down. Yeah, there's not too great of a distance in terms of the overall rankings of Downs and Bucky, but yes, I still do prefer Bucky in this scenario. Bucky and Lamb are my 2 suggestions there. Shrey, thank you. Tony sends in a question. Tony Hines says, Hunter Henry or Laporta in a half PPR. Again, guys, just reminder, the rankings right here, up to date this morning, half PPR, 36 running backs, 36 wide receivers, 4 point per passing, 16 quarterbacks, 16 tight ends. So if you have questions regarding interpositional rankings, the rankings to the right side of the screen are here for a reason, and they filter for a reason. So people, if you're asking about quarterback, it's there. If you're asking about tight end, Hunter Henry, right here, right? So in the case of your question for a half PPR, Henry or Laporta, I prefer to play Henry. Next question, Reed or Deebo Samuel, I would prefer to play Reed there. Thank you. All right, Peyton Whitaker sends in a question, says, would you do Andrews over Likely? I would, yes. I have Likely ranked, like at least in a half PPR sense, I have Isaiah Likely as my number 18 overall tight end. But yes, I would still prefer to play Mark Andrews in that instance. Thank you. G. Medina sends in a question. Says, in a half PPR, should I drop Tillman for Quentin Johnston rest of season? Yeah, why not? Look, I still believe that Tillman's going to be of value, but considering he's probably going to be the concussion protocol this upcoming week, may end up missing. If you're going to be in need of a player that is going to immediately make an impact for your team in order to help you get to that fantasy playoff kind of berth, then yeah, let's make the swap. Matthew Wallace sends in a question. Thank you, Matthew. Says, starting Ladd and Quentin Johnston, Disley or Hunter Henry in a half PPR? Okay, that's an interesting one. As of right now, in a full PPR, I would rank them relatively closely, but in a half PPR, I do believe ever so, yeah, I feel, I want to start 3 Chargers. That's the issue. Like, I feel like at this point, it could benefit you to potentially not putting all of your eggs in one singular basket, because if the Chargers get completely blown out or something like that, you lose this week. It's done. But I would even go as far as to say is like, even if you played Will Dissly, if the Chargers, even if you didn't play Will Dissly, even if the Chargers get ransacked tonight or on Monday night and they lose, you're probably going to lose anyway. Because if Vlad McConkey and Quentin Johnson don't show up, you're cooked. So if anything, at this point, yeah, I'm just going to suggest that you play the players that at least I have ranked the highest or I projected the highest. I'd start 3 Chargers this week there. I would. Thank you. If anything, it's just you've cornered the entire market. You've cornered the entire Chargers receiving market to where there's no exposure to anybody else that is going to seep to where you're going to get screwed over. So basically, if Quentin Johnson or Ladd McConkey can't pull it, at least Will Dissly could potentially be the guy that benefits from it, and you have it all pretty much taken care of. Thank you. All right, moving on to a question that comes in from Meat Sweats, who says, in a full PPR, Trey Benson or Amir Abdullah? I would play Amir Abdullah very confidently. There's no way that I'm playing Trey Benson ahead of him, primarily because of volume of touches aren't guaranteed. Trey Benson typically will get himself touches in the case of a potential blowout. Amir Abdullah is going to be the primary back for today, most likely playing 50+% of the offensive snaps and should see himself an exposure to at least 10 touches today, which makes him, just the automatic. Thank you. Moving on to a question from Rob Jackson says, hey Andrew, in a full PPR, Tucker Kraft or Theo Johnson? Great question. As it currently stands in a full PPR scoring format, Theo Johnson is my number 19 overall tight end. Tucker Kraft is my number 17. They're relatively close. Between the two of them, the only concern that I would theoretically have in the case of Theo Johnson is the uncertainty of the quarterback position. There is still a lot to be answered in regards to what exactly a Tommy DeVito-led offense in 2024 is going to look like. Obviously, we know what it was constructed and comprised of last season, but it was a very different approach in comparison to this year. Like when Tommy DeVito took over, it was still the Saquon Barkley show. It was a run-heavy approach, very much so trying to keep the ball out of his hands in order to ensure that he doesn't lose them the game. So as to whether or not they just let him loose is a completely different situation. For now, yeah, I would prefer to play Tucker Kraft in that situation. Thank you. Appreciate it. Shay sends in a question. Shay says, in a full PPR, need a flex between Rico, D-Hop, and Hawkinson. Great question. Between the 3 of those, I believe I have Hawkinson ranked the highest. Let me just confirm. Let me look this up on my Excel sheet. Hawkinson. Yes, I have TJ Hawkinson 2 spots ahead of DeAndre Hopkins. He's my number 59 overall in a full PPR in comparison to DeAndre being my number 61. Rico Dowdle not close to either of them in terms of the overall rankings. Hawkinson is the preferred. Thank you. Moving on to Sip, who sends in a question. Says, hey Drew, rank PPR Downs, Hopkins, Bucky, Tracy. Beautiful. Sounds good. Let me go ahead and let me find where I have Downs in comparison to those running backs, and we'll be good to go. Okay. So as it currently stands, this is the way that I have it comprised, Sip. I have number 1 Bucky, number 2 Tracy, number 3 Downs, number 4 Hopkins. Okay. So both the running backs, then both the receivers in that variable order. Bucky, Tracy, Downs, Hopkins. I have Tracy and Downs really close to one another to the extent to where quite literally, let's see, 2 spots away from one another to the extent to where I would feel comfortable playing one over the other, but I will keep it as what I have it as such based on my projection. So Bucky, Tracy, Downs, Hopkins. Moving on to the next question. Second, half PPR, pick 2, Downs, Dobbins, Hopkins, Ikine. Okay, so for this second question, if I'm picking 2 of the 4, I am playing Dobbins and I am playing Downs. Moving on to your third question, Sip, PPR, Jonnu Smith or Goddard. I prefer to play Goddard primarily because of the absence of Devontae Smith this week. Additionally, great matchup against the LA Rams. Thank you. Juan Sardina sends in a question. Thank you, Juan. Says in a full PPR, Hubbard, Reed, or JSN? Great question. As of right now, of the 3, I prefer to play Jackson, Smith, and Jigba in a full PPR scoring format. And then your follow-up question was then Tank or Waddle. I prefer to play Tank Dell there. So JSN and Tank Dell would be my 2 suggestions, Juan. Thank you. AJ Rice sends in a question. Says, hey, Andrew, will Christian McCaffrey play? Not designating yet. The expectation is that he should. I didn't even think it was in question, to be totally honest. I never got to the point where I'm thinking, oh, yeah, there's no chance that he played. I never even crossed my mind that a potential situation of that caliber could exist. We got a report last night that, of course, Trent Williams, the left tackle, is expected to play. So, again, because of the current designation on the official website of the 49ers, okay, so on Friday, Christian McCaffrey, full practiced. So that in itself guarantees that he's going to play. So for those of you who are also potentially wondering and or considering, oh, Andrew, is someone like DeAndre Swift going to play this weekend? Well, he also got a full participation in practice by Friday. So as of right now, Christian McCaffrey has no game status. He has no injury status. What he was designated with was non-related injury resting player. That's what he was designated with earlier this week. So again, he's not injured. He will play. I think you may be the only one that's concerned about the situation, AJ. He's for sure playing. There's no question about that. So yeah, you're good to go. Thank you. Chris Allin sends in a question. It says, start 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and 1 flex. Thank you, Chris. All right, so you've got a lot of great options here, to say the least. So I understand your struggle. You have Jefferson, Sutton, Addison, Flowers, Evans, Montgomery, Hunt, ETN, Estime. Okay, so ETN doesn't play this week, but as we continue into the overall start 5 of these potential options, Jefferson is my wide receiver 1, alongside of Sutton being my wide receiver 2. Now, in a full PPR, I'd prefer to play Flowers over Evans, so I'm most likely going to put myself in a situation. Yes, I'm not. Yeah. So I go Jefferson, Sutton, Flowers as the 2 wide receivers in the flex, and I'm playing Montgomery and Hunt as your starting RBs. Chris Allin, thank you. Moving on to Obi-Wan Kenobi, who sends in a question. Thank you, Obi. Says in a full PPR, Anthony Richardson or Sam Darnold, and Mike Evans or Deebo Samuel. Okay, between those groups of players, I would prefer to play Anthony Richardson over Sam Darnold as long as it is a 4-point per passing touchdown format. In the case in which it is a potential 6-point per passing touchdown, it would be Darnold. But I don't expect that to be the case. Therefore, Richardson over Sam Darnold, like it says on screen when it filters on. And additionally, I do prefer to play Mike Evans over Deebo. Thank you. All right, Cody Bear, 60, sends in a question. Thank you, Cody. Cody says, pick 2 in a full PPR, Hunt, Ridley, Pollard, or Jennings. Of the available, my 2 preferred is Hunt and Ridley, I believe. Let me see where I have Pollard and Ridley. Ridley's there, and Pollard is there. Yeah. So that's the way that I would go about it. I'd play Kareem Hunt and Calvin Ridley. Those are the preferred out of the 4. Thank you, Cody. Appreciate it. Ash had sent in a question. Ash Naziri, let's see if I can find your message in the live chat, because there wasn't anything attached to your original question. Ash, is there anything in the live chat? I don't specifically see anything right now. Yeah, maybe I do this. Ash Naziri. Yeah, Ash, if you could do me a favor and type in the live chat what your question was, that'd be greatly appreciated. I'm going to go ahead and write your name down on the side here, just so we can swing back around to the question once you've gone ahead and typed that in. Thank you. Again, for those of you who are joining us this morning, we're about 35 minutes into the live stream. Welcome, good morning on this wonderful Sunday for week 12 of the 2024 fantasy football season. Like I've mentioned, again, the rankings right here, like we do every single Sunday morning, are updated as of this morning. So for those of you who are new to the channel, again, these are as of this morning ranked, ready to go, etc. to help you out. Additionally, for those of you guys who are members of the Patreon and or have signed up using code Andrew via Underdog since August 1st of 2024 up until yesterday midnight, again, those rankings have been either posted on the Patreon and or sent to you directly via email. So if you guys are looking for those, make sure you check your spam folder. Thank you. Outside of that, we're continuing on. Let's see what's the next question in this sequence. All right, scrolling back up here, we had a question that came in from, after Ash, we had Dragon Slayer, who says, flex, McBride or Josh Downs? That's a really, really good question. Let's see where I have Downs in comparison. Is it a full PPR, Dragon Slayer? It is a full PPR. All right, cool. So as it currently stands, I have Downs ahead of him. I'm going to play Josh Downs ahead of McBride. Thank you. Jose sends in a question. Nothing attached to it. Jose, let's hope that your question's in the live chat. If not, I'll ask you to hopefully retype that out if you can do me that solid. Yeah, so I don't see your question in the live chat, Jose, but yeah, if you could do me a favor, type that out. That'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Jose Dones. All right, so let's see. Did Ash, by any chance, type in the live chat? Okay, I see Ash's question. Ash says, Bucks or Packers defense? Okay, again, rankings are on screen. I do prefer the Bucks over the Packers today. And then your next question was Moody or Schrader at kicker. I'd prefer to play Schrader from the Chiefs. Thank you. Sorry about Super. No, you're good. Listen, again, I'm more than happy to accommodate. If it doesn't get attached, I don't have an issue with it. Again, it makes it a little bit more tricky because we're going to have to kind of like find it in the live chat. But, I mean, it takes like 10, 15 seconds. It's not a big deal. Thank you, though. Appreciate it, Ash. All right, let's see here. Maybe Jose quickly types it in. Let's see here. Let's scroll down to the very bottom. Jose, you here? No, maybe no. Okay, we will wait until then. We will have Jose on the list, and we'll come back around for said question. Okay, let's continue on. Hopefully my YouTube does not crash. It looks like it is slowly but surely melting away. All right, we move on to a question that came in from Joel Garza. Thank you. It says PPR, Hunt or JSN? As it currently stands in my PPR rankings, I have Kareem Hunt ahead of JSN. Thank you. Moving on to a question from Schnapps, who says, in a 10-team flex, White, Chuba, or Irving? Okay, Rashad White, Chuba Hubbard, or Bucky Irving. Between the three of them, again, I think they're all potentially great plays. Obviously, starting Irving over White, there is already a trickiness that is going to have to be balanced. Typically, what I've suggested over the course of this weekend is for people who have both Irving and Bucky Irving and Rashad White, I've typically suggested that it may be in your best interest to play as if you had like Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery, to where you're playing both backs in order to ensure that you have the entire, kind of market cornered of the running back production of the Buccaneers. But of the bunch, regardless of scoring format, I am playing Bucky Irving there. Schnapps, thank you. FRS has sent in a question. FRS, hopefully you type your question in the chat. Just repeat it if you can before I go looking in there. I'm going to answer a couple more of these questions, and then I'll hop into the live chat to see where your question landed. Nick L sends in a question. Says, I dropped the 49ers for the Lions or Cardinals. Which is better rest of season? For rest of season, I prefer to have the Cardinals on roster. Thank you. Dave C sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, I need 2 flex and 2 running backs. Okay, great. You have Irving, Kyron, Hunt, Aaron Jones, Ridley, Downs, Pollard, Waddle, and Javonte. Okay, cool. You got fantastic options here. Look, as it currently stands, in a full PPR scoring format, the preferred method in which I would approach this would be Kyron, Hunt, Irving, and Ridley. That's the 4 that I would like to play. I could consider playing Aaron Jones in that final spot in order to just have all of the positions just running back filled. But I do like the idea of playing Ridley alongside of Irving, Hunt, and Kyron. That's what I'm going to suggest. Thank you. Appreciate it, Dave. Moving on to a question from Colin, who says, Eckler or Jennings in a PPR? Look, Eckler's overall exposure to receiving opportunity, guys, has not been great over the course of the season. Yes, he's coming off of a week in which desperate times called for desperate measures. It was a game in which Terry McLaurin had quite literally one reception the entire game. So the exposure of 9 targets, 8 receptions is not something that we can look at and say, oh, that's going to be something that repeats. It was an anomaly in the overall scheme of the season. The most receptions he had in a singular game up until then was against Baltimore, in which that was a game in which Brian Robinson wasn't even active, and he had only 4 receptions in that contest. So going into the matchup, I would much rather play Jauan Jennings. In the event in which Eckler scores a touchdown, sure, he could very easily outscore Jennings. But again, it is very difficult to predict that to be the case, considering he's not only competing with Brian Robinson, Jayden Daniels rushing upside, and additionally Jeremy McNichols, who ever so slightly every now and then steals a rushing touchdown. So I'm not really interested in Eckler in that circumstance, or quite frankly, playing him in many of circumstances. Jennings is the preferred there, Colin. Thank you. All right, let me go ahead. Let me hop back into the live stream chat and see where we're at in terms. Oh man, this YouTube just crashed again. Classic. Okay. Hopefully, yes, it did update. Perfect. So let's see if Jose was in the chat. Jose says, I need help setting my lineup. Cool. Jose says, Herbert, Anthony Richardson, Stevenson, Hunt, JT Jacobs, and Connor. Okay. So 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and 2 flex. Wide receiver is Cup. I'm choosing between Dell and Downs. Okay. I've swapped Anthony Richardson and Herbert and Downs and Dell so many times this week. Understood. Okay, Jose. So let me just give you some mental clarity on the matter. I'd much rather play Herbert. Again, he has been significantly more consistent, 275 plus yards in 4 of the last 5 games, 2 plus touchdowns in 4 of the last 4 games. He is the better option taking on Baltimore in comparison to Anthony going up against the Lions' buzzsaw of a defense. So Herbert should be the play there. As for your running back starts, Hunt, Connor, and Jacobs should be, well, actually you have 2 flex. So honestly, if I was in your position, I am playing Hunt, JT, Jacobs, and Connor. Those are the 4 that I'd like to play. I mean, it just auto starts. They are the elite of the elite at the running back conversation. So Hunt, JT, Jacobs, Connor for this week. Fantastic. And then between Dell and Downs as your wide receiver 2, I think the flipping back and forth between the 2 of them, I've done the same as well, but I do prefer Josh Downs in the scenario. I have him a tier ahead of Tank Dell. I prefer to play Downs in that scenario. Thank you. Appreciate it, Jose. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of clarity on the matter as to how I go about it. All right, FRS, hopefully you typed in the chat. FRS, you there by any chance? No? All right, FRS, we'll come in back and we'll swing back around once you've typed that in. I appreciate it. All right, continuing on with some of the super chats that were sent in. We continue with Chris Brown. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. It says start 3, Nakua, Hill, Evans, Jennings, and Ridley. Cool. Of those available options, I think, again, you're pretty set with your studs, right? Nakua, Hill, and Evans are the guys that I'm going to play. There would be no scenario in which I play any of the alternative options, Jennings or Ridley, in comparison. I would only have ever considered it if Brock Purdy was active. So as of right now, Nakua, Hill, Evans, those are your starts, Chris. Thank you. Red Sox 2240 says in a 10-team PPR, Brian Robinson Jr. or Mike Evans? That is a fantastic question. I believe I have Brian Robinson ranked higher. Let me confirm this. I do, in fact, have Brian Robinson ranked higher by 4 spots. I would prefer to play Brian Robinson in that sequence. Thank you. Moving on to a question from E345, who says, PPR, Knicks or Murray? I'd prefer to play Knicks. Moving on, Kittle, Disley, or Hawkinson. In a full PPR, let me see where I have Hawkinson. Yeah, I have Disley still ranked higher of the bunch. And then with Hayden Hurst out, it makes Disley like the automatic in that scenario. So yeah, there's not even a competition within tight end for Disley to have to compete in. Like, he's going to never leave the field. So yeah, Knicks, Disley. Then moving on to your final question, it says, do I flex Dell or Swift? That's a great question. In a full PPR, I believe, let me see. I think I have Dell ranked higher. There's no way I have Dell ranked higher. Is it significantly higher? No, but it is enough to where I am going to confidently tell you to play Dell in that sequence. And it says, can use extra tight end for the flex as well. Oh, okay, interesting. So theoretically, you could play either Kittle or Hawkinson as well. Let me see where I have Hawkinson in comparison to Dell. Yeah, no. In a full PPR, it is relatively close. But at the current circumstance, no, I'm still going to play Tank Dell there. So in this sequence, Knicks, Disley, and Dell. Thank you, E345. Appreciate it. I am sends in a question. Says Jennings outlook with Purdy uncertainty rest of season. Again, the entire outlook for the 49ers offense is a nosedive in comparison to what we originally anticipate. Now, again, I think today is going to give us a lot of clarity as to what we could potentially expect. Whatever my outlook is as it currently stands is going to be altered as soon as the game completes between Green Bay and 49ers later this afternoon. So really, I'm just going to wait. Let's see what the offense kind of looks like in the absence of Purdy. And from there on, we can get ourselves a pretty good understanding as to what we could potentially anticipate. Me making a prediction as to how it's going to look. Again, my prediction is the nosedive. Obviously, there's still a lot of talent there. Still a lot of great coaching, but the quarterback play is definitely something that is going to make the biggest difference within that offense. Moving on to Adam W., who says, Hopkins or Dobbins in a half PPR flex? I'd much rather play Dobbins. Thank you. Moving on to Daniel Gonzalez, who says, who would you rather keep, Bates or Seibert? I'd rather keep Bates rest of season. Thank you. Moving on to a question. Jackson Wambach says, Reed or Bucky in a full PPR? I would prefer, as of right now, let me see where I have Reed. Reed is ahead of Bucky in a full PPR. Ever so slightly. When I say ever so slightly, I mean he's literally my number 33 in comparison to my number 34. They're back-to-back ranked. Thank you. Meat Sweat sends in a follow-up. Says, Ramondre or banged up Mike Evans? He's not banged up. They have no limitation on him. I prefer to play Mike Evans. Again, understand that the only reason he had limited participation at practice is because he's a veteran. If you go back to even healthy weeks earlier this season, there are weeks earlier this year where he didn't practice a single snap, primarily because he is a veteran. He needs the rest, and they want to make sure that he's healthy. Over the course of this week, they've had him at limited participation in practice because they're just, quite frankly, just keeping him moving and making sure that there's no setbacks. So yeah, I'd much rather play Mike Evans in this circumstance. And he's not quote unquote banged up. He's at a full capacity. There's no limitations for him. Christian Jackson, 3424, sends in a question. 3524. Says full PPR, Hubbard or Myers in the flex? I'd much rather play Hubbard as of right now. Thank you. Paul Allen says, would you start Likely or Schoonmaker over Justin or Tucker Kraft in a half PPR? Yeah, look, as of right now, the rankings are going to pop up in about, let's say, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Can I predict it? No, I can't predict it. Damn. Okay, well, I was 1 second off. Anyway, you see Luke Schoonmaker on number 14 on the bottom right? He's ahead of Kraft by 2 spots. So yes, I would play Luke Schoonmaker ahead of Kraft in this sequence. Thank you. All right, Luke C sends in a question. Says PPR flex. Start. Please rank the following. Okay, number 1, Roshan, Dylan Labe, Dobbs, Westbrook, Ikine, Alec Pierce. Okay, so if I'm gonna potentially tell you who to play, because I can't rank all of them. You got too many players here. So as it currently stands, of those available options in a full PPR scoring format, my favorite of the bunch is Romeo Doubs. I'd say second, as of right now, is Alec Pierce. Third is Westbrook. Everybody else is just not playable. Moving on to your next question, it says, which has the highest upside? Of the prior players that you mentioned, the highest upside, in my opinion, is most likely Alec Pierce. And then your third question, it says PPR rest of season, David Montgomery or James Conner. Rest of season, I'd prefer to have James Conner as it stands. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Dara, or Darish, LOL, says, who would you start in a full PPR? Amir Abdullah, Justice Hill, or Jalen McMillan? Out of those three options, I would prefer to play Amir Abdullah. Thank you. Falcon Beast 9 sends in a question. It says start 2, Brooks, Waddle, Ertz, Dobbs, or Bateman. Not playing Brooks. Not playing... Yeah, I mean, at this point, in a full PPR scoring format, I think it's probably in our best interest. Like, okay, so here's the thing. Starting Waddle is extremely sketchy. Is there a possibility that he could go off today? Of course, any single day. He is such a talented receiver. As long as they give him the opportunity to go off, he absolutely would be able to. But in this circumstance, again, I have a hard time like confidently telling you to start him. I have him projected as a great number because my projection model just has him like every week playing relatively well, because all he needs is a little, he just needs like 7 targets. I swear that's all he needs, and he's good to go. But, they're not going to even send that in his direction. As it currently stands in terms of the highest players ranked, I have it as Dobbs alongside of Waddle. In a full PPR, I would probably, look, at this point, I think to play it safe, you probably just go Dobbs and Ertz. And if you wanted to take the risk because you needed the upside and just you needed that risk kind of potential, then you would go Dobbs and Waddle. Thank you. Andrew Pacino sends in a question. Thank you, Andrew. Says, I'm currently 7-4, fighting for the buy spot. Okay, very well. Picked up Taysom Hill off the waivers. Beautiful. I'm debating whether to drop Brooks to fill the tight end spot. Drop Brooks for Disley or Hunter Henry. Yeah, I'd be willing to do so. Again, look, Jonathan Brooks could be a value, but then again, his upcoming schedule is very daunting to the extent to where, again, Chuba Hubbard's still going to maintain the number 1 opportunity spot. So any rushing touchdowns on the goal line, all that kind of jazz is always going to be defaulted to Chuba. So Brooks, again, is going to be someone that is a secondary option within the offense, specifically within the running game. So in your sequence, again, if you don't have a tight end to play this week, I'm absolutely dropping Brooks, and I don't know what your scoring format is, but Disley is a fantastic pickup and play, not only this week, but for the next 4 weeks. This week he takes on Baltimore. The week after, I think we have Kansas City, Atlanta, and Tampa Bay. Those are all top 12 matchups at the tight end position. Thank you. Donahue Brown sends in a question. Thank you, Donahue. Says in a PPR, Reed, Ridley, or Ramondre. As it currently stands, the order at which I have it is the following, exactly as such. Reed, Ridley, Ramondre, in that exact order. Thank you. George Hernandez sends in a question. Says, half PPR, Knicks or Baker? I'd prefer to play Knicks there. Again, I don't think there's a wrong answer. If you wanted to play Baker over him, I have no issue with that at all. Next question, Thielen or Westbrook Ikine in the flex. As it currently stands in a half PPR scoring format, I have Westbrook Ikine ranked higher. Thank you. All right, let me go ahead and let me hop back into the live chat to see if we had a follow-up from FRS. Let's see here. Control F, FRS. Okay, FRS, it said 0.3 points per completion. Okay, would you start Daniels or Herbert? Appreciate it, my dude. Yeah, no problem, FRS. I'm glad you were able to send that in. Apologies for my delayed response on the matter, but again, I was waiting for you to type that in. Just wanted to make sure I gave you the appropriate time to do so. Between the two of them, I'd rather play Justin Herbert. Thank you. All right, we move on to a question that comes in from, let's go ahead, let's move FRS off of the list. Okay, the next question sent in from the one and only Mac, who says, trade my JSN for Jennings. JSN/Hopkins/Mark for Adams and Otten. Okay, so really quickly, just a reference point. If we're talking about rest of season, if I can get a guarantee that Brock Purdy's going to return at any point to where he's going to be helping Jennings throughout the fantasy playoffs, then sure, I'd like to have Jennings there. But in the instance in which he does not return at a quick manner because this injury is a lot more serious than we originally anticipate, at that point, I'd be very concerned. Now, again, the current standings for the 49ers, they're a 5-5 football team. They can afford to lose the next 2 games in the absence of Brock Purdy, collect themselves a 5-7 record, and then win out for the final 5 games of the season and finish 10-7 and make the playoffs as a wild card team. So, I mean, at this point, again, It's just purely dependent on what you're capable of doing. If you're looking just purely towards the fantasy playoffs, sure, let's make the move. But if we're in a situation where you're still trying to fight for a playoff position, JSN will be the guy that I prefer in the short-term sequence. Now, as for your other question, JSN, Hopkins, Mark Andrews for Adams and Naughton, honestly, I think I just keep what you have as it currently stands, Mac. Thank you. Jonathan Cushman sends in a question. Says, in a 12-team full PPR, I need a flex. Who would you start between Wando Robinson, Ricky Pearsall, or pick up Bateman off the waivers? In a PPR, I'm very comfortable playing Wando Robinson there. Let me see where I have him ranked in comparison to Bateman in a full PPR. Obviously, it's a little bit different. Yeah, in a full PPR scoring format, Wando Robinson is my number 36 wide receiver. Rashad Bateman is my number 37. I'm not making this up. This is quite literally my Patreon rankings. You can ask anybody that's got those available. 36 compared to 37. So they're back-to-back, but Wando is the preferred. Thank you. Moving on to Cameron Kaplan, who says, drop one for Amari. Let's see here. You have Kyron, Kamara, Chubb, Warren, Rico. Wide receivers are JJ, Ridley, J-Mo, Tank, D-Hop, Adams, Disley, Andrews, Kincaid on the IR. Cool. Am I dropping any of these players for Amari Cooper? I mean, quite frankly, when I look at your receivers, JJ, Ridley, J-Mo, Tank, and my Adams, I mean, look, at this point, I don't think I'm playing Amari Cooper over any of them. If you want to pick him up in order to just have that additional potential option, you can. You could drop Kincaid to accomplish it. Actually, no, Kincaid's on your IR, so no. I'm not dropping anybody here in order to pick him up. No, I'm not. Thank you. Chris Moraga sends in a question. Says, in a half PPR, pick one. Christian Watson, Keenan Allen, or Wando Robinson. In a half PPR, I have Christian Watson ranked the highest. Thank you. Moving on to Damon Smith. Thank you very much, sir. Says, in a full PPR, Luke Schoonmaker or Mark Andrews. I'm thinking Luke, since the Chargers hasn't allowed a touchdown by a tight end. No, I totally understand it. I mean, look, when I look across the board, in terms of my full PPR rankings, let's go to full PPR. Yeah, as it currently stands, Luke Schoonmaker, number 13, Mark Andrews, number 14. So I do have Luke Schoonmaker ahead of him. I would continue with what you have in mind here, Damon Smith. I'd play Luke. Thank you. Dominique Rad sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, TJ Hawkinson or Sam Laporta. They are banked back-to-back in a full PPR. Hawkinson's my number 9 overall tight end, and Laporta's my number 10. But I do prefer Hawkinson in this scenario. Thank you. Again, both fantastic plays, though, in a full PPR within the tight end position. Appreciate it, Dominique. Derek sends in a question. Says, start one in the flex. PPR. Kayshon Boutte or Amir Abdullah. Let me see where I have them ranked. Let's see where I have Abdullah. Okay, so Amir Abdullah sits there. Where's Boutte? Let's see. Where is he? Yeah, I have Amir Abdullah ranked higher. Thank you. Moving on to a question that comes in from Freddie Gonzalez, who says, full PPR, Waddle or Jennings? I prefer to play Jennings there. Thank you. Again, I don't believe that the offense as a whole is going to be like, okay, so let's just put it this way, right? So there are some offenses in the National Football League specifically that as a scheme, they function at such a high level that even with a quarterback change, they will still produce relevant offensive production, okay? So even in the absence of Brock Purdy, the 49ers are not going to disappear as an offense. It's not like as if I don't know if you guys remember, like let's say for example, last season, there was a game in which the LA Rams lost Matthew Stafford, okay? He was injured. He missed the game against Green Bay. Funny enough, they traveled to Green Bay and they got mollywopped. Okay, they got absolutely embarrassed. Primarily because, again, when you replace him with a quarterback in a scheme in which the quarterback itself is the playmaker and is dictating everything, his performance is the absolute, the pinnacle of their potential for success in comparison to a Kyle Shanahan offense where it's quick, get the ball out of your hands quickly, let the receiving options make the plays after the catch, solidify the running game, lean upon that. When you have an offense that is predicated on the scheme itself rather than the singular players carrying the scheme, you'd prefer to still play guys like Jennings in this circumstance. Thank you. Angela Clark sends in a question. Thank you, Angela. Says, good morning, Andrew. In a full PPR, I need one wide receiver and a flex. We have Lockett, Thielen, Pearsall, Eckler, and Ertz. Okay, cool. So you got some pretty solid options here. In a full PPR, let me see where I have pretty much Ertz compared to the group. So as it currently stands, the way that I'm probably going to suggest you go about this, where's Lockett? Lockett's there. Okay, so Adam Thielen and Ertz are okay, then where's Eckler? Eckler's there. Cool. So the way that I would suggest going about it, Angela Clark, would be playing Ertz and Thielen. Those are the two highest ranked that I have as it currently stands. Number 3 would be Lockett. Number 4 would be Eckler. Number 5 would be Pearsall. So the way I have it in order: Thielen 1, Ertz 2, Lockett 3, Eckler 4, Pearsall 5, full PPR. That's the way I go about it. So Thielen as your wide receiver and Ertz as your flex. Thank you, Angela. All right, Michael Badu. Let me see. Where are you? Is it Badu or Bado? Michael. All right, Michael, if you can do me a favor, type in the live chat, because by the time you sent in the question, it's probably like, I want to say 10 plus minutes ago. So the live chat is updated to the extent to where it's no longer there. If you could do me a favor, just type in your question again. That'd be greatly appreciated. What is mollywopped? If you guys, okay, so I don't know if you guys remember last year, I think it was like week, I want to say 6 or 8. Let's see here. LA Rams. It was a week last season, 2023, in which the Rams went to Green Bay and got mollywopped with the backup quarterback. Week 9 last year, we lost 20-3. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. I don't expect the 49ers to get embarrassed like that. So just putting it into perspective as to why I have the confidence within the guys like Jennings and Debo and Kittle, still to the extent at which I do, even though we have a significantly lesser quarterback sitting there under center. Thank you. Okay, so we'll wait until Michael sends in that question. Until then, we have a question from Walker, who says, are we starting Hunter Henry over DJ Moore? That is a great question. I would probably lean towards no. Let me see where I have them ranked comparatively. DJ Moore sits there. Where's Hunter Henry? Hunter Henry's there. No, I'm going to play DJ Moore there pretty comfortably. Look, if you're playing in a full PPR, I think they're relatively equal because, again, DJ Moore is going to highly benefit from the quick screen game, which, again, is a very frequent part of the offense, especially considering Caleb doesn't want to push the ball down the field. In the event in which Hunter Henry scores a touchdown, then he's going to outscore him. But even then, he does that in very few instances. So I'll take DJ Moore in that situation. Thank you. All right, Mark sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR flex, Reed, Hopkins, McBride, my quarterback is Mahomes. Understood. I'm going to play Reed there as your flex. Thank you. E345 says, questions in the chat. Last one didn't post. Thanks. I think I answered your question though, right? Maybe you had another question, E345, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add you to the list, and then we'll check it out in a second. Matthew Badeau had sent in a question. Okay, so you had actually sent in another super chat to correct it. Got it, Matthew. Or Michael, excuse me. Michael Badeau says, full PPR flex, Swift, Goddard, Reed. Thank you. Okay, between those available options, I am going to play Jaden Reed this week. Thank you. Okay, so we'll take you off the list there. We're good to go. Appreciate it. Enemies Within sends in a question. Says, full PPR, cut 2, Jennings, Hopkins, DJ Moore, Pitts, BTJ. My quarterback and tight end are on bye both this week. PPR have same situation, cut Amari Cooper or Warren. If I'm cutting either Amari Cooper or Warren, I'd prefer to cut Amari Cooper. Now, if I have to cut 2 of the 5 names you mentioned prior, at this point, between Jennings, Hopkins, DJ Moore, Pitts, and BTJ, I'm cutting Pitts and Hopkins. I'm keeping Jennings, DJ Moore, and BTJ. Thank you. Flawless sends in a question. Says, yikes, Vele or Palmer in a full PPR? Times are rough. Yeah, I mean, times are rough, but I prefer to play Vele there pretty confidently. Thank you. Bards sends in a question. Says, full PPR, 1 wide receiver and 1 flex. We have Marvin Harrison, Reed, Jennings, Bucky. Cool. Of the available options, I would prefer to play Reed as your wide receiver and Bucky within your flex. Thank you, Bards. To the Max sends in a question. Says, full PPR, pick 1 for the flex. Otten, Bucky, Quentin Johnston. Thanks. If I'm picking one of those 3 for the flex, I am playing Bucky Irving there. Thank you. Parlay Bandit sends in a question, nothing attached to it. Let me see if I can find your question in the live chat while I go ahead and do so. Let me also see if E345 has sent in a follow-up. E345. Nothing from E345. I think we answered your question, so maybe you didn't have anything else as a follow-up there. Parlay Bandit says, start Ramondre versus Miami or Tracy versus Tampa Bay as RB2. I think I'm going to play Ramondre in both situations. Yeah, no matter what the scoring format, I'm playing Ramondre there. Thank you. Appreciate it, Parlay Bandit. All right, let's see here. What is this report? Is there anything new in terms of 22 minutes ago? Okay, nothing crazy. All right, continuing on. All right, so in terms of the next question on hand, we had Perry or Paul. Perry, thank you. Perry says, full PPR flex, Ridley or Jonathan Taylor? That's a really good question. I think I have it as Jonathan Taylor. Let me see. As it currently stands, JT sits there. Yeah. So I have Jonathan Taylor at 32, Calvin Ridley at 35. relatively close in terms of overall ranking. I would not mind playing Calvin Ridley there, but I do have Jonathan Taylor projected higher. Thank you. Moving on to a question from Luke C, who says, PPR trade, Devontae Smith / Dallas Goddard for Ridley and Quentin Johnston. I have Ladd McConkey and Trey McBride. Yeah, if you need the wide receiver depth for the short term in order to make sure that you can capture victories and get yourself into the fantasy playoffs, and sure, I have no issue with that at all. I think it's a great trade for you. Thank you. Jonathan Cushman sends in a question. Says, update to my last question. Okay. 12-team PPR. I need to flex Justice Hill, Benson, Wanda Robinson, or Bateman. Understood. Of the available in a full PPR, I am flexing Wanda Robinson. Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate it. The S-Box says, start Goff or Love this week. I'd prefer, again, to follow whatever it says up here. So, again, I will reiterate, the rankings that are on screen answer that question clear and away. I prefer to play Jared Goff today. Thank you. 420 Gal sends in a question. Says, Kaimi Fairbairn or Austin Seibert rest of the season, drop one. I'd prefer to have I'd prefer to have Kaimi Fairbairn on. Well, you know what? Here's the thing. Both of them have a bye week, so you're kind of screwed either way. But between the two, I'd prefer to have Kaimi Fairbairn just in case Austin Seibert has an issue where maybe he re-aggravates that injury. Thank you. JJC sends in a question. Says, start in the flex. PPR Swift, Roshan Johnson, Dobbs, Laporta. Let me see where I have Swift in comparison to the bunch in a full PPR. Swift sits there. Romeo Dobbs sits there. Where's Dobbs? Okay, yeah. As of right now, I'll play Swift out of the bunch. Thank you, JJC. Swift is the play. Moving on to Retro Gandalf, who sends in a question. Says, PPR, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex. We have Lamb, JSN, Irving, Stevenson, Jennings, and Collins. Cool. Nico Collins is wide receiver 1. CeeDee Lamb is wide receiver 2. And within your flex position in a full PPR scoring format, I am playing JSN. So Collins, Lamb, and JSN are your 3 starts there. Retro Gandalf, thank you. Panda Man sends in a question. Says, I've got a trade offer. I'm giving up AJ Brown and CJ Stroud for Jaden Daniels and JSN. What do you think? For rest of season purposes, I could justify it. I do look. The upcoming schedule, specifically for the fantasy playoffs for Stroud, isn't great. I mean, when he has to take on Kansas City week 16, I don't love the overall proposition of it, considering the way that he's played. So yeah, I don't mind the trade. I don't mind it. But again, I don't mind the trade. I think Daniels, by the time you get to the fantasy playoffs, will be healthy and at a full capacity. That's fine by me. Jesse G sends in a question. Says, JSN or Trey Benson? It's not even close. It is JSN by a full, I want to say maybe 30 or 40 potential ranking spots, maybe even more. G Medina sends in a question. Says, half PPR, flexing Jennings, Bucky, Downs, or Quentin Johnston. Of those available options in a half PPR, G Medina, we are playing Bucky Irving. Thank you. Panda Man had a follow-up to his last question. Says it's a full PPR league. Understood. Yeah, I mean, look, even in a full PPR, half PPR, the whole question is how greatly do we need that quarterback upgrade to where I believe it is justifiable. So, thank you. Sounds good to me. I'll take it. I don't have an issue with that at all. All right, so let's see. We took care of that. We continue on. Question from Jesse G. We took care of. Panda Man again. Okay. Twisted Folk sends in a question. Thank you, Twisted. Says in a half PPR flex, Jaden Reed, Tracy, or McBride. Let me see where I have Tracy comparatively in a half PPR. Okay, let's see. Control-T, Tyrone Tracy. Okay. As it stands, in a half PPR scoring format, I have Tyrone Tracy ranked higher. So Tyrone Tracy would be the highest ranked of the bunch. The way that I'd go about it, Twisted, will be playing him in the flex. And then it says for my other team, flex Sutton or Kenneth Walker. Let's see, half PPR, I prefer, let's see, where the heck is Kenneth? I prefer to play Kenneth Walker in a half PPR over Sutton. And then, as always, appreciated, Andrew. Thank you. All right. Appreciate it. Thank you, Twisted Folk. So, again, I would suggest playing both the running backs, Tracy and Walker there. Thank you. Austin H. sends in a question. Says, must win today. Is it too risky to stack Connor and McBride with Kyler today or should I go with Mahomes' easy matchup versus Carolina? Do I just... Look, at this point... The only concern that I had with Kyler that has moved me to kind of variably kind of shift him down the rankings ever so slightly over the course of the last, I'd say 48 to 36 hours is the rain that is expected to be implicated within the game in Seattle. I don't expect it to be in a manner in which it should negatively affect him greatly. I just don't want the extra additional risk of it in comparison to Mahomes, who again should be putting up. I mean, if Mahomes doesn't score 3 touchdowns today, I will be surprised. Now, again, it is going to be in a situation in which if Kareem Hunt scores 2 touchdowns himself, or maybe there's a rushing touchdown to Mecole Hardman or Xavier Worthy or something of that exchange, that he won't get there. But I think Mahomes is probably the safer play. I understand the idea of stacking all of your Cardinals, but I think in your case, like I mentioned with the person that we talked about earlier that was considering playing the potential of 3 Chargers, I'm just trying to play the best or the highest ranked players I have that have the highest potential projection based on my model. So I'll suggest just playing Mahomes there. But if you want to play Kyler, again, I have them back-to-back ranked on screen, so I could justify as to why I would play Kyler there. Onvesh sends in a question. Says, "Hey, Andrew, how are you? I'm doing great, thank you. I'm running on 3 hours of sleep, but we're doing pretty solid so far. The last couple of days has been very, very, very fun. Again, if you guys haven't, we'll talk about that in a bit. But anyway, questions in the chat. All right, thank you, Onvesh. While I go and try to find your question in the chat, I also wanted to see if E345 had any follow-up potentially. No. Okay, so we took care of that one. We're good. Onvesh, where are we? Onvesh. Okay, do me a favor, Onvesh. Type in live chat what your question was originally supposed to be, and we'll continue on. Appreciate it. All right. So we continue with, after Onvesh, we had the Watch Hangout who sent in a question. It says Hunter Henry or Romeo Doubs at the flex. Between those two, as of right now, especially in a full PPR, I'll play Hunter Henry there pretty confidently, to be honest. Thank you. And then it says drop Juju or Marvin Harrison. Or sorry, that's not Marvin Harrison. That's MVS, as in Marquez Valdez-Scantling. If I'm dropping one of those two, I'm dropping Juju. Thank you. JK sends in a question. It says full PPR currently starting Pop Douglas and Lockett. Okay, very well. Should I drop any of these two for Slayton, Noah Brown, Westbrook, Ikine, Palmer, Vele, or Shepard? Nope. Well, okay. Am I dropping any of these two for the alternatives? This is what I'll say. I do, in fact, have Westbrook, Ikine ranked higher than I have him ranked higher than Lockett. Am I making that variable swap in terms of dropping him in order to play him? Not exactly. So, no, I mean, look, at this point, I don't think you have to drop anybody. Would I play Westbrook over Lockett? Yes. That's the only suggestion. I mean, like, that's really the only potential move that we would make. The separation between the two of them in a full PPR is Nick Westbrook as my number 41 wide receiver and Lockett as my number 43. So even the separation between the two of them is so it's like a half of a point. It's less. It's like 0.3 points of a separation. I just tell you to keep what you have. Ninja Turtle sends in a question. Says Addison, Abdullah, or Pittman in a half PPR flex. Cool. Let me see where I have Pittman in comparison to Abdullah. Let's go to my half PPR. Okay, Pittman is there. And where's Amir Abdullah? Amir Abdullah is there. Yeah, so the order at which I have it is Pittman 1, Addison 2, Amir Abdullah 3 in a half PPR. Thank you very much, Ninja Turtle. All right, Casey sends in a question. Thank you, Casey. He says, hey, Andrew, play Pollard or Jennings in a full PPR? That is a very interesting question. So as it currently stands, I believe I have Pollard ranked higher. Let me just confirm this. Yeah, I have Tony Pollard ranked higher. Look, the promising baseline of opportunity that Pollard is going to be exposed to today because of the absence of Tyjae Spears is so significant that if in fact this matchup even is remotely close because the Texans aren't able to pull away and all the injuries that they have on defense, I think Pollard is a fantastic play. I've moved him up pretty considerably over the course of this week because of the confirmation that Tyjae Spears is out. In games in which Tyjae Spears has not played over the course of the last 2 months, Pollard is averaging over like 20 touches per game in those sequences and averaging over, at least in a half PPR, 13 plus. So in a full PPR, that's like 15 plus point player. I think Pollard is a safe, solid, fantastic play for the weekend. Thank you. We move on to X Factor. Thank you, X Factor. So starting McBride at tight end, flex is down to Jonnu Smith or Jawan Jennings in a standard league. In a standard scoring format. Look, I don't have standard rankings. I do have half PPR rankings. And as it currently stands between Jonnu and Jennings, I have Jennings at 52 and Jonnu at 57. If I'm going to objectively tell you who I think is going to have a little bit more touchdown potential for upside, I would tell you that it's Jonnu Smith in comparison because I don't know how often the 49ers are going to score. So if it's me, I probably just tell you to play Jonnu Smith in this scenario. Can Jennings absolutely outscore him? Possibly. Again, in a scenario in which you could just get more yardage in a non-PPR format, he does it. But as of right now, if I'm thinking who has a higher touchdown upside, I think it is Jonnu Smith, considering how they've utilized him within the red zone as of late. Thank you. Moving on to a question from Jesse G, who says, Abdullah or Malik Neighbors in a PPR? I'd much rather play Malik Neighbors. Thank you, Jesse. H. Jockish says, Worthy, Bateman, or Pop Douglas in a PPR? Between those three, I am playing Pop Douglas. Again, in a full PPR scoring format, in comparison to a half, there is such an uptick of overall baseline of production from Pop Douglas because of his high reception counts that it just makes him an auto start in this situation. So again, like Demario Douglas, over the course of the last 3 weeks in a full PPR scoring format, 10.5, 9.0, 9.9. When you're getting yourself 4+ receptions per game, it just makes it an auto play. And earlier this season against Miami, 9 targets, 6 catches for 59, 11.9 fantasy points. Again, he's a solid baseline player. Now, in the event in which Worthy or Bateman scored their touchdowns this week, which again is very unpredictable, they could very easily outscore him, but I'll just take Pop Douglas there. Perp sends it a question. Says half PPR Abdullah or Noah Brown? I'd prefer to play Abdullah there. Thank you very much, Perp. Appreciate it. Sending it sends it a question. Says Jennings or DJ Moore? I prefer to play DJ Moore there. Thank you. Sean August sends it a question. Says Tua, Jordan Love, or Jaden Daniels? Between the three of them, I'd prefer to play Jaden Daniels. Next question, Kittle or Waddle in a full PPR? That is a great question. I think I have Waddle. Let me just check. Nope, I don't. I have Kittle ranked higher. Kittle 64, Waddle 67. I think I'm going to make an audible here. You know what? No. I don't know. It's so interesting how this... No, I'm going to play Kittle there. Let's just play Kittle. Let's roll with Kittle there. Thank you. I'm not going to make an audible. I'll just take my my projection as word, as the gospel. All right, moving on to Aaron, who sends in a question. Thank you, Aaron. Says Connor and JSN or Stevenson or Nakua? For this week, if I had to pick one of the two combos, I'd prefer to play the Connor and JSN combo, quite frankly. Thank you. Thomas Dabney has sent in a question. Nothing attached. Let me see if you sent in anything in the chat, Thomas. While we go and look for that, Anvesh has sent in his question. Says, all my wide receivers are on bye. Chase, Adams, and Mooney. In a must-win game, got Quentin Johnston. I need another high-ceiling wide receiver. Westbrook, Ikine, Pierce, Vele, Palmer, Leggett. I'm leaning towards Pierce. I agree. Yeah, if you're looking for total upside, Alec Pierce is the guy. Absolutely. I agree with that, Anvesh. Thank you. All right, moving on. Let's see what the question was from. So we can remove Anvesh from the list. We're good to go there. There's no problem. So we need to find Thomas Dabney, and we also need to find Chris Moraga's follow-up. So let's see. Thomas Dabney says, another Monday night toss up. Okay, very well. It says, is Ladd going to be cleared off of the IR report? No, he's not going to be quote-unquote cleared. As long as you... Okay, so here's the thing. Again, they don't play until tomorrow, so there's a possibility that they clear him, but he's going to play regardless. That is a given. I mean, unless he had missed practice in any sequence over the course of the week, there is a very low likelihood that he misses the game. So is he going to be quote-unquote cleared off the IR report? No. As long as he had any sort of limitation, he's going to have to stay on the report for legality reasons. But anyway, your next question says, and Justin Herbert against bad Ravens secondary or Bo versus with a rushing touchdown upside? Look, as of right now, I prefer Bo. If you want to wait and play Justin Herbert, I don't have an issue with it. They're back-to-back ranked. The separation between their values in terms of my projection isn't significant enough to where I feel so strongly about one over the other. So it's just a matter of how you prefer it. I do prefer Bo because of that rushing upside. But yeah, expect Ladd to play and, of course, expect both those quarterbacks to play well individually. Thank you, Thomas. All right, after Thomas, we had to find Chris Moraga. Okay, nothing in the live chat. So maybe Chris will show up later on and maybe type something out, or we already took care of his question and we'll keep it moving. Okay. So we continue on with Alex Songrass. Thank you, Alex. Alex says, hello, my friend. Hello, my friend. Thoughts on Matt Gay over Elliott today? Okay. 6 point. Okay. So first and foremost, there is a possibility in which Matt Gay does not continue his sequence of success. Matt Gay, since week 4, has had himself 2 field goals per game minimum over the course of weeks 4 through 11. I would assume that he'll continue as such today. Jake Elliott coming off of a pretty bad performance his most recent week. Again, outdoors, missed 2 field goals early, pretty rough. I do prefer Matt Gay this week still, though. Continuing on, 6-point per passing touchdown, Baker or Daniels. I'd prefer to play Baker there. Then moving on to the final question, says full PPR, Irving or White. I prefer to play, well, in a full PPR, it makes it a little bit tricky because White could very easily come away with like 4 or 5 receptions, but Bucky Irving has caught 100% of his overall targets over the course of the last 5 games. He gets himself a pretty good sequence of overall opportunity there as well. So I'm going to play Bucky there because he will primarily be the goal line back as well. And then it says full PPR, Slayton or Nick Westbrook. I play Westbrook there. So Alex, I'm playing Matt Gay, I am playing Baker, and I am playing Westbrook. Thank you. Blue Jay 619 says Aubrey or Ryland. As it currently stands, let me see where I have them ranked on Patreon. I have Ryland as my number 13 and Aubrey as my number 15. So I have Ryland ranked higher, ever so slightly. And then it says Schoonmaker or Kraft at full PPR. I'd rather have Schoonmaker. Thank you, Blue Jay. Rob P says PPR pick 2. Jonnu Smith, Waddle, or Worthy. I'll play both of the Dolphins there in a full PPR. Thank you. Rockout sends in a question. Says Ladd over Stevenson, but do you think Ladd plays? I do believe that Ladd will play. Yes. Again, there is always going to be the potential uncertainty of a scenario, but as it currently stands, we have to understand and we have to put into context that Ladd McConkey has been limited in practice each of the last 2 days. If he had been a DNP, which is a do not participate, or did not participate, we would assume that he's not going to participate. So in the case in which he's been limited, again, very similar to a bunch of other wide receivers that we've seen over the course of the season, they've been limited and they are probably going to be in a situation where they play. If he wasn't going to play, they've already put him within the doubtful tag, which has not existed. Therefore, expect him to go ahead and ball out this upcoming week. All right, moving on to Chris Moraga, who sent in a super, but there was nothing attached. I'm going to put your name on the list, Chris. If you end up typing something, we'll get to it in a moment. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Sir Vancelot sends in a question. Says 2 of 4 in a full PPR wide receiver side. Dobbs, Watson, Leggett, or Allen. Okay. I don't want to play Keenan Allen. He barely got the potential of even playing this week. He might not even play. He's going to have to warm up before the games before we see what happens. As of right now, of those available options, I'm playing Leggett and Dobbs. Thank you. If you wanted to potentially avoid playing Leggett in a situation in which you just wanted to make sure you just went all in on the Green Bay Packers, I could justify it. But personally, I do have it set as Dobbs and Leggett as the higher ranked. Thank you. Beto sends in a question. Says George Kittle, Jacoby Myers, or Rico Dowdle, full PPR. Let me see where I have Myers in comparison to Kittle. As it currently stands, I have Myers ahead of him. So I'm going to play Myers there. Thank you. Raghav had sent in a question. Nothing attached to it. Let me see if you typed anything in the chat, Raghav. All right, Raghav says, all right, so, okay, Raghav says also Debo or Myers. Between Debo and Myers, I'd rather play Debo as a current, well, actually depends on scoring format. Let me see where I have them in a full, yeah, no, I'd still rather play Debo there. As for your prior question, Raghav, I don't see it. If you want to retype that, you certainly can. And we'll put you on a list in terms of names that we can sequence back to. Chris Moraga says question is in the chat. Chris, I do not see your question. Maybe you sent in another super chat potentially, but in terms of, again, like I've told you guys before, if you guys send in a question, let's say, for example, you type it too many times, there's a possibility that that the auto moderation will take your message and completely ban it, or like not ban per se, but there's a possibility that the auto moderation that I have set will take your message and just completely blacklist it to where it's just like it won't even pop up on screen. So I don't see anything from you, Chris. If you can, retype it and potentially in a different sequence so that maybe it'll pop up. Sean says, were there no hidden gems this week? Nope, no. There's no hidden gems this week. There's no hidden gems next week. And potentially no hidden gems the week after that. Again, with 6 teams on bye this week, there are not enough players that I feel confident enough just outright going and saying, yeah, you should play them. If there were 6 players that I felt confident doing so, then I tell you. But like guys like Amir Abdullah, Nick Westbrook, Ikene, those are 2 guys that we mentioned on Friday's live stream as guys that you could potentially go pick up and play this week. Alec Pierce could be another one of them. But 6 players as a whole that I feel objectively confident about, no, that doesn't exist. This upcoming week, I will probably not have it as well. The following week after with upcoming, 6 teams on bye week 14, probably not going to have it as well. So I don't expect hidden gems for quite a while now. I think it'll probably just slow down because especially when we're in the final couple games of the season, taking these big risk players, these home run shots are going to be, potentially detrimental to the outcome of your season. All right, I see your question, Chris. Chris says in a PPR, pick 1 wide receiver and 1 flex. Flowers, Ladd, Hawkinson, Myers. I'll play Flowers and Ladd there very comfortably, 1 and 2. Nervous about Ladd? Nope, I wouldn't be. Okay. Should I start Myers and flex Flowers in case? Nope. Fire them both up, brother. Fire them both up. You're good to go. Appreciate it. Raghav sends in a question. Says, where did it go? Where did it go? Rag, where are you? PPR, worth picking up Disley, Jonnu, or Henry over Kittle? Honestly, yeah, I would rather start Disley this week. I'd honestly rather start all of them this week. But preferably, Disley would be number one against the Baltimore Ravens on Monday night. Thank you. All right, moving on. Let's see here. We go back to the live chat. I do appreciate you guys following up with those questions in the live chat so we can keep this train moving. All right. After Raghav, we have Carlos Lori. Carlos, thank you. Says JSN or Tracy in a full PPR. As it currently stands, I have JSN ranked higher in a full PPR. Thank you. Kadiak sends in a question. Says, need a wide receiver 2 in a full PPR. Downs, Jennings, Johnston. As it currently stands in a full PPR scoring format, I have Quentin Johnston ranked the highest. Thank you. It'd be Johnston 1, Downs 2, Jennings 3. Evo Ed 3 says 1 quarterback, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex. We have Bo Nix, Anthony Richardson. I will play Bo Nix there. We have DJ Moore, Jawan Jennings, D-Hop, P-Man, and Ridley. Okay. So, in terms of those available receiving options, this is the way that I'm going to go about it, Evo Ed. Bo Nix is your quarterback. The wide receivers that I would play would be Calvin Ridley as wide receiver 1. I'd play DJ Moore as wide receiver 2, and I would play Jawan Jennings within the flex. Thank you. Justin Rhinesmith sends in a question. Says PPR, Douglas, Addison, Watson, or Leggett. As it currently stands in a full PPR, I have Addison ranked the highest. If you want the safe 10 points, you take Douglas, but Addison does have the ability to get himself 4 receptions, 50, 60 yards, and have a very similar baseline, but also has the additional receiving touchdown upside, which I want to kind of key in on. So Addison will be the number 1 that I suggest there. Otherwise, if you want just the safe 10 points, Douglas would be the number 2. Fish Clinic sends in a question, says PPR, pick 2, JMO, Downs, DeAndre Hopkins. I'll take JMO and Downs, 1 and 2. Thank you. Demont Smith sends in a question, says full PPR, what are your thoughts on starting Amir Abdullah over Nick Westbrook, Ikine? Let me see where I have them ranked. Abdullah. As it currently stands, I have Amir Abdullah ranked higher than him. So yeah, I'm all in on the idea. Again, it's just a matter of pure volume that I rely upon in that case. All right, couple reports that came out as of just moments ago. Malik Neighbors will play in Week 12. That is confirmed. If anything else comes to fruition and light, I will relay it to you guys. Thank you. All right, I'm saying though. That's a good one. Sends in a question. It says, full PPR, pick 2 wide receivers. We have Hill, Downs, Myers, D-Hop, Addison. Cool. I'm going to play Hill and Downs there. Thank you very much. Danny Show sends in a question. It says, half PPR, pick 2. Kittle, Otten, Dobbs, Worthy. Out of those available, I am going, let's see, where do I have Dobbs? What did you say? It's a half PPR? Cool. So if I go half PPR, if I look up Dobbs comparatively to Kittle, where do I have them ranked? So as it currently stands, the 2 highest ranked that I have here, Danny, is Kittle and Otten. That's the 2 that I would play as of right now. Thank you. Lawrence sends in a question. Says, hey, Andrew, in a full PPR, Neighbors or Dobbins? In a full PPR, I'd rather play Neighbors. Thank you. Gaga sends in a question. Says, I have a lot of players on bye. Abdullah or JT? Sanders in the flex. Okay, got it. So if I'm either playing Abdullah or Jatavion Sanders, I'd prefer to play Abdullah in the flex. And it says PPR leak hearing a buzz about Labe. Could get a lot of touches at running back. I mean, look, again, I have no clue. We haven't seen him play a single time. Well, we've seen him play 1 game this season. Otherwise, he's been the practice squad running back. So again, there's a possibility that he could get touches. As for him, I wouldn't anticipate that Abdullah gets all of the workload. That doesn't exist, especially within the Raiders organization. But as it currently stands, if I was to prefer one of those 2, specific options, if I'm not mistaken, let's see, in a full PPR, let's see where I have Jatavion in comparison to, Sanders. Yeah, I mean, look, the separation between their ranks is less than, there's like 7 spots between the 2 of them, but yeah, I'd prefer to play Amir Abdullah. Again, anything that could happen with the other running back within the Raiders offense is totally speculatory. I have no clue how they want to utilize them. I can only assume that he'll get a couple rushing attempts or maybe a couple targets, but not enough to where it is going to impact Amir Abdullah to eliminate him from the overall prospect of being the lead back this week. Thank you. Moving on to a question that came in from All right, so we took care of Lawrence, took care of Gaga. We move on to Sean Trevino. Thank you, Sean. It says PPR, 2 flex. Tracy, Bucky, Debo, Pop, Thielen. Yeah, I'll take both running backs. Give me Tracy and Bucky there. Thank you, Sean. All right, Quack Lee sends it a question. It says full PPR. Jonnu Smith, Amir Abdullah. I'd rather play Jonnu Smith there. Thank you. H. Jockish says Abdullah or Eckler. I'd rather play Abdullah in a full PPR. Thank you. YG Trace. Actually, let me just make sure that I have Abdullah ahead of him in a full PPR just to confirm. I do. I have him one spot ahead. They're both in the same tier, 25 and 26 though. All right, so then we move on to YG, who says estimate Leggett or Abdullah in a full PPR pick 2. I'm playing Leggett and Abdullah. Thank you. Moving on to Kevin Ferguson, who says flex 2 in a full PPR. Dobbins, Brian Robinson, Jonathan Taylor, Stevenson, Downs, and Jennings. If it's my team, I'm playing Jonathan Taylor and Brian Robinson today. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it. Danny Show sent in a follow-up. Says sent earlier question asking to play 2 out of Kittle, Otten, Dobbs, Worthy, but can also pick up Jonnu Smith off of the waivers if he would make it into the top 2. He would. I would play Otten and Jonnu Smith in that scenario. Thank you, Danny. Appreciate it. Rockout says Stevenson or J-Mo in a PPR. Let me see where I have Stevenson comparatively. In a full PPR ranking, Stevenson is ahead of, Jameson. I'll play Stevenson there very comfortably. Thank you. Again, the volume of touches that he's going to be exposed to is pretty, packed in terms of value. Andrew Montoya sends in a question. Says, must win pick flex half PPR Kelsey, Bowers, Pollard. Yeah, it's Bowers, objectively. I'm not getting cute with it. I'm just going to play the stud player of the bunch. Thank you. Walker 5530 says, never thought I'd be asking about these players in week 12. LOL. Pick 2 in the flex players. Full PPR. Waddle, Jennings, Disley. Ha. Wow. As it currently stands, the 2 highest ranked I have are Disley and Jennings. That's the way that I'd go about it. Never did I think in any situation would I be starting Disley ahead of Waddle in fantasy. If you had told me this at the beginning of September, I'd have told you you're crazy. I'd ask, is Waddle hurt? But he's not. And this is still the scenario. Thank you, Walker. Daniel Barnes says, I'm streaming Schrader from Kansas City also as my kicker. Thoughts? Yeah, I don't have an issue with it. Again, Schrader as my kicker ranking is my number 14. So, again, it really just is just purely a matter of, are they going to score touchdowns today or are they going to kick field goals? I think it's more of a touchdown scenario in which they're blowing out the Carolina Panthers. But hey, you never know. They could get stalled out in a scenario where it leads to a couple 40-yard field goals and he has himself a solid 10-point week. So really, it's just a matter of, do we get the lucky sequence of maybe them failing a couple third downs? But yeah, I don't have an issue with it at all. He's ranked within my top 15. Adam Clark sends it in question. Says full PPR Kyron or Marvin Harrison? I'd rather play Kyron. Marvin Harrison with the weather, a little bit lesser of a potential priority, in my opinion. Brushy Honey sends in a question. Says Kyron or Bucky? I'd rather play Kyron there. Thank you. John Pack sends in a question. Says with Purdy out, do I play DeVito, Rush, or Levis? You put Levito, which is interesting. Maybe that's just your autocorrect, but I prefer to play Levis above the bunch. So Levis would be number 1, DeVito would be number 2, Rush would be number 3. That's the way I go about it, John Pack. Thank you. Alrighty, let's see here. Keenan Allen officially active for week 12. Okay, that's what we anticipated. Continuing on. We had Alex Olivas who sends in a question. Says, hey, Andrew, in a half PPR must-win week, 1 wide receiver, 1 flex spot. Waddle, Leggett, Thielen, Westbrook, and Pierce. Who would you start and why? Listen, as of right now, in a half PPR, the rankings are on screen. The players that I have ranked the highest in a half PPR as it currently stands are going to be Waddle and Leggett. Those are the 2. Now, again, Leggett is the number 1 of his offense, so I know he'll get his utilization. And he's also been a very, heavily integrated part of the red zone attack. That is why he has scored a touchdown in 3 of the last 4 games. Now, as for the overall upside of these alternative options, Thielen, I don't know how much he's going to play. I do expect him to play a pretty good amount because Coker is not going to be available. Westbrook and Pierce, Westbrook is 100% contingent on him scoring a touchdown. And Pierce is 100% contingent on him getting a deep ball down the field that leads to 50-plus yards. Waddle, on the other hand, has a better matchup with Christian Gonzalez most likely shadowing Tyreek Hill. The other secondary members of the defense have not played well. Based on what the Rams, pretty much accomplished last week, I would like to assume and hope that Waddle could have himself a very similar, not similar, but at least get himself a solid week. So at this point, I'm going to suggest playing Leggett and Waddle. That's the way that I have it ranked. That's where I'm going with. Thank you. John Smith says in a 10-man full PPR. Says I need one quarterback, one wide receiver, one flex. We have Kyler and Goff. Okay, I have Kyler ranked higher. JSN, Ridley, Johnston, Abdullah. JSN and Ridley are the two highest ranked at wide receiver and flex. So that's the way that I go about it. Thank you. Kevin T sends in a question. Says in a full PPR, two flex, Jaden Reed, Ridley, Tracy. Cool. Of the available options, I'm going to play Ridley and I'm going to play Reed. Those are the two that I prefer as of right now in terms of my rankings. Thank you. Frank Grillo sends in a question. Thank you, Frank. Says, what does I say? Kyler Murray or Mahomes. I prefer Mahomes there. Also, White, Dowdle, or Hunt. I prefer to play Hunt. So play both of your Kansas City Chiefs. Thank you, Frank. Perry Paul, thank you, Perry. Says Superflex, Caleb Williams, Brandon Allen, or DeVito. As it currently stands within my rankings, let's see. I have Brandon Allen at 22, DeVito at 21, and Caleb at number 19. So I'd play Caleb Williams out of the three. Mid Diff sends in a question. Mid Diff, what do you play? League or something? Let me see. Go to channel. Let's see what Mid Diff has. Mid Diff has some very interesting videos of him playing Battlefield from 5 years ago. What's up, Mid Diff? Anyway, he says half PPR, Jackson Smith versus Neighbors. As of right now, I'm going to play Jackson Smith there. That's who I got. Thank you. Again, speaking of mid-diff, if you guys play League, dude, Arcane Season 2, absolute cinema. Absolute cinema. What a ridiculous season. You'd think after the first season, there's no way they can improve upon it. God, man. Absolutely incredible. I could not believe what I was witnessing over the course of the last 3 weeks. If you guys haven't watched Arcane on Netflix, that's about 12 hours of content that you can do yourself a favor and watch probably the greatest animated series that's ever existed. And I'm not even exaggerating, unless you want to talk about like One Piece or something like that because of the longevity. Continuing on, Nexus sends in a question. Says full PPR, need a flex. Diop or Rashad White? I'd prefer to play Rashad White there. Nexus, thank you. Tony VHTC or TX 101. So Tony says, greetings and salutations. Full PPR, wide receiver pickup. Christian Watson or Nick Westbrook Ikine. If I'm playing one of the two, I'd rather play Nick Westbrook against the Texans secondary. Thank you. Appreciate it, Tony. Okay, so again, a reminder, guys. As of right now, rankings right here are up to date as of this morning. Again, if you guys are Patreon members, rankings have already been posted as of this morning at 1 a.m. Additionally, I've also sent out an email to those of you who sign up via Underdog using code Andrew, making that first time deposit minimum of $10 as of August 1st to last night prior to midnight. So as long as you've signed up there, the rankings have been sent to your email. Check your spam folder. It has been sent out, ready to go. So if you guys have any questions in regards to interposition rankings, here it is. Otherwise, if you're going to type in the live chat and or send in a super chat in order to claim priority, make sure you include your scoring format. Scoring format is highly important in terms of the overall context of the question. It will definitely alter the overall answer as we approach. In some sequences, it may not, but in some, it will definitely make a huge difference. So whether it is a half, standard, or full PPR, make sure that's included within the question as a whole. Again, people asking whether or not, like I see a question in the chat says Disley or Ertz, right? Within the rankings that are up there, Disley is so significantly higher ahead of Ertz that there's not even a question to be asked there. Even in a half compared to a full, at a wide receiver position, unless a receiver is going to get themselves to the potential of like 10 plus receptions, which again, there are wide receivers that are capable of the such, like a JSN. They don't move very much in terms of the overall rankings, especially tight ends who again are going to get themselves 4 or 5 receptions on a given week. So when we talk about those two, the rankings are the rankings, and they probably will not change. Like there are variable changes. Like Hunter Henry will go up a couple spots because he's more has a higher exposure to targets in compared to somebody like, for example, like a Laporta. But as we continue, we'll see. Okay, let's see here. King Carl sends in a question. King, where is your question though? King Carl. King Carl says, what made you bump Nakua up? Says, what made you bump Nakua up McLaurin? Question mark. You mean above McLaurin? Is that what you mean? Yeah, the primary... Look, I know that Philadelphia's defense is scary, but here's the fact of the matter. I cannot sit in any sequence. I cannot sit Puka Nakua. So even though it's a great matchup for McLaurin, the only issue that I have is if we get one of those weeks, which we've seen quite often over the course of the last month. We've seen it twice. If we get one of those weeks where he doesn't score a touchdown or doesn't have his 100-yard receiving game because they're just blowing out Dallas, again, you would assume that they're going to need to utilize him to blow them out. But if we get into a situation in which he doesn't get the exposure to opportunity. Unfortunately, there's a bit of me that is a little bit scared on the situation. So I've kind of leaned away from it. And quite frankly, the only way for the Rams to win that game is if Nacua actually plays well. Like, I've very rarely ever seen Nacua ever get shut down. The only time that I can honestly remember off the top of my head in which he's been shut down, it's either been games in which, first and foremost, he's either gotten injured and left, so that doesn't really count, or it's been games in which he played against, I remember last year, the Cowboys took on the Rams and they blew us out by like 20 points. In that game, he got shut down. But again, that's against, a defense in a matchup in which, again, he just completely disappeared. And that's just once out of the last like 20 plus performances. So I'm still comfortable with Nacua here. I think the scheme in itself is going to get him open. Okay, let's see here. We continue on from King Carl. We had a couple questions sent in. We had John Pack who sent in a follow-up. Says full PPR flex, Evans, CD, or Kyron. In a full PPR, I'm playing CD Lamb there. Thank you. Oh, wide receiver and flex. Okay, got it. So let me see. Where do I have Kyron in comparison to Evans? Let me just confirm this really quickly. Kyron is, where's Evans? Evans is there, and Kyron is there. Yeah, so I'm going to play CD Lamb and Kyron there, John Pack. Thank you. Kevin, the credit guy, sends in a question. Says, DeVito or Brandon Allen? I have DeVito ranked higher. No joke. I don't trust Brandon Allen that much. Do I expect Brandon Allen to be able to get the yardage? Absolutely. Do I expect him to throw a bunch of touchdowns? Nope, I do not. It says bye week Dynasty League. LOL. Yeah, totally understand it. Totally understand. Okay, let's see here. Mo K sends in a question. Says, what's up, Andrew? Need a win today. Do I roll with Jaden Daniels or Justin Herbert? I'd prefer to play Justin Herbert. If it was my team, that's the way that I go about it. It says, I've been rolling with Jaden Daniels. He hasn't been great as the last 2 weeks. Half PPR, 4-point per passing touchdown. Yeah, I would suggest playing Herbert there. Thank you. Donald Smith says, should I cut Moody? If so, Aubrey or McLaughlin? I mean, yeah, I would cut Moody and I'd pick up McLaughlin. I'd play him today. Donald Smith, thank you. Andrew Mitchell in the chat sends in a question. Thank you. Says, sup, Drew? What order do you start in? What order would you start in standard? Jennings, DJ Moore, Dell, and Reed. Okay, so the order at which I go about these potential players in a standard scoring format is a little bit different than. I mean, look, is it going to be that much of a difference? No, but the way that I'd go about it would be Reed number 1, Dell number 2, Moore number 3, and Jennings 4. So Reed, Dell, Moore, Jennings. That's the way that I go about it. If Jennings is the best floor, Reed has the best ceiling. Thanks. I don't even know if Jennings has the best floor, to be totally honest. I think, quite frankly, out of the group, I think the floor production might actually be Tank Dell. Especially in a standard where you get 0 points per reception. Okay, let's see here. Panthers rookie Jalen Coker is inactive. Adam Thielen is active. That's what we anticipated. So, Thielen's got a solid play potentially today. Leggett is also an improved play because of the absence of Coker there. What else do we have here? DeAndre Swift is active. Beautiful. Okay, good to go. Continuing on. So that's the way I go about it, Andrew Mitchell. Thank you. No new reports. We continue on with Adam Amar, who says Levis or DeVito. I'd rather play Levis there. Moving on, Eckler or Jacoby Myers in the flex. I have Brian Robinson. I'd rather, well, look, as of right now, if you want to corner the entire running back market of Washington in case anything spills out in the direction of Eckler, you can certainly play that, but I do have Jacoby Myers ranked higher. Thank you. Moving on to a question that came in from Orlando, who says, Neighbors now knowing how well he, okay, it says, Neighbors not knowing how well he will play with DeVito, or Ladd not knowing if the injury status for Monday night. I'd rather play Ladd McConkey. I'm being 100% legitimate. I'd rather play Ladd McConkey. I know he's going to play. Hodge sends in a question, says PPR, Jawan or D-Hop. I'd rather play Jawan Jennings. Opponent has Mahomes / Worthy, and why? Yeah, look, the difference between the two of them is that still to this day, DeAndre Hopkins does not get a lot of overall opportunity in terms of snaps. You go back to last week, he played 47% of the snaps. With less snaps, that means less targets because he's running less routes. So ultimately, in terms of the entire scheme, until they get into a situation where they are consistently letting him play 80% of the snaps or more, I'm not confident in DeAndre Hopkins. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came in from Justin James. Thank you. It says, in a full PPR league, out of my options in the waiver wire, still for the flex, who should I pick up, Adunze or Abdullah? I'd rather pick up and play Adunze. Thank you. Moving on to Evan Me. Evan, where is your question? Let's see, control F. Evan Me. Evan, I don't see your question in the live chat. If you could do me a favor and type it in, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you. I'm going to add you to the list of people who did not add their questions appropriately. Continuing on, we had a follow-up from Adam Amar who says Bateman over Watson, Andrews over Schoonmaker. If we're talking about a half PPR, yes. If we're talking about a full PPR, I would take Schoonmaker and play him over Andrews. But yes, I would still play Bateman over Watson this week. Thank you. Christian Taylor sends in a question, says, questions in the chat. All right, Christian Taylor, thank you. Let me see if I can find your question. Let's go Control F. Let's go look up Taylor. Christian Taylor, where art thou? Says, Tua or Love? I'd rather play Jordan Love today. And it says, I need upside. Understood. 4-point per passing touchdown. It says 4-point bonus for 40-yard touchdowns. 5-point bonus for 50-yard touchdown. 3-point bonus for 300 passing yards. Understood. Again, as of right now, so with that into context, Tua is the better play, objectively. I think Tyreek Hill has the ability of those bigger plays for those touchdowns. And I think Tua probably has a higher likelihood of the passing yardage accumulating rather than the alternative of Jordan Love, because I do believe that the running game will be highly utilized within the upcoming contest. So Tua is the preferred in this circumstance because of your specific format. Otherwise, in a normal 4-point per passing touchdown league, we're playing Love. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Christian Taylor is done. And let's see if Evan has sent in his question. Evan, me, nothing. Okay. Very well. We will continue on, hoping that you'll type that in eventually. All right, continuing on, we had a question from Jose Rodriguez, who says, traded Montgomery for Evans and still play Hunt at my flex. Traded Montgomery for Evans and still play Hunt in the flex. I don't know what you're asking. I'm confused. So you traded Montgomery for Evans to do what? To play him in the flex? Yeah, I mean, if you did that, then that's great for the future. But as for this week, considering Pacheco is out, again, Hunt is a fantastic play against Carolina. Third best matchup. He's got himself 20-plus touches in 5 of the last 6 games within the offense. So yeah, I mean, look, Hunt is just the auto play. Kofi Kingston sends in a question. Says in a half PPR, start 3. We have Taylor, Evans, JSN, Debo, and Tracy. Cool. So you got great options across the board here. Of the available in a half PPR scoring format, the approach that I would do would be playing Taylor, Evans, and Tracy. Thank you, Kofi. Appreciate it. Young Lord sends in a question. Says PPR, Swift or Debo? Great question. Let's see where I have Swift in comparison. Swift. As it currently stands, I'm not even joking. I have Debo at 51 and Swift at 52. They are back-to-back ranked, but I do have Debo one spot ahead of him. Why are we so low on CJ? He just doesn't play well. I mean, I'm going to be totally honest. In terms of quarterbacks that have taken the biggest step backward in comparison to last season, he has taken the biggest leap. He hasn't leaped backwards. I don't know if you guys have seen this new Call of Duty game where you can there's Omni movement where you can dive backwards. That's what CJ Stroud has done. He has dived down the overall ranking list based on his overall production, lack of touchdowns, inaccuracy, and of course, unfortunately, Mixon's association with the offense makes him a lesser option because anytime they go into the red zone, Mixon is a vacuum for touchdowns. So yeah, I mean, Stroud, again, you could very easily justify him to being a top, at very best, I would, at very best today, rank him as quarterback 15. I wouldn't go any higher than that, but I currently have him as my number 17. I like the matchup against Tennessee. It's just nothing tells me that he's not going to get yoinked across the board by touchdowns, you know? Okay. VSVP says 25 mile per hour winds concerning for Baker. I'm sorry, what? 25 mile per hour winds? Let's see here. Where's Tampa Bay? So I don't know where you got that report from. The source that I've used for the last 5 years while doing this says, 13 to 15 mile per hour winds. I don't know where you got 25 from. Perhaps a different alternative source, but the one that I've used for, again, the last 5 years consecutively, that I'll take at its, at its word, like it's the gospel. It doesn't say 25 miles. So, at the moment, I won't be able to contest your point. I just don't believe it's true because, again, my source is the one that I'll lean towards. Thank you, AP. Thank you, VSP. AP says in a question, it says PPR flex McConkey, and if he doesn't play, sub in Dobbins or start Tracy today. Honestly, yeah, let's do that McConkey play. Again, if you can play McConkey tomorrow, let's try to do so, please, and thank you. Again, thank you. Appreciate it. We had a question that came in from Flawless, who says, pick one. Let's see here. What? Brother, I don't even know what you're asking me. What does it say? Pick one. Got it. All those sound like a disaster. Until I get a sponsorship regarding one of those, I'm not interested. Thank you, Flawless. It'd probably be the last one of the bunch. Kevin, the credit guy, sends out a question. Says pick. All right, it says quarterback 6 point. It says what does it say? 6 point per passing touchdown plus 1 point per completion. Goff, Baker, Stafford. Wow. Between the bunch, it's got to. Wow. 1 point per completion. The issue with Goff is that there's a chance that he doesn't have that many passing attempts today because they blow out the the defense. So as of right now, I'm probably leaning towards playing Baker here. Let me see. Yeah, let's play Baker. That's the preferred of the three. In a 1 point per completion league, Baker's the play. Kevin, the credit guy. Thank you. Yoni Ruben sends in a question. Says in a full PPR, start two. D-Hop, Debo, Adunze, Waddle. I'm worried to start Debo because of the quarterback, which I understand. I agree. And do I go with Rome even though I'm starting Caleb? Okay, so of the available options you have, if I'm suggesting plays, I'm telling you to play, at this point, Debo and Diop. If you are worried about Debo to the extent to where you don't want to play him, then play Adunze and Diop and you're good to go. Thank you. Appreciate it. Gio Ortiz says, in a PPR, 1 running back, 2 wide receivers, and 1 flex. Amir, Rico, Estime, Rome, JSN, Jennings, Westbrook, Disley, starting Laporta at flex. Okay. So if we're starting 1 running back, 2 wide receivers, and 1 flex. Okay. So when you say you're starting Laporta at flex, you mean you're starting Laporta at tight end or you're actually starting him in the flex? Because then, okay, anyway. Amir Abdullah, Rico Dowdle, Estime. Okay. So of those available, Amir Abdullah. No, let me see here. Where do I have ranked higher in a full PPR? I think I have Abdullah as the ranked highest running back. Let's see. Yeah. So as it currently stands, the way that I go about it, GRTs, I play Amir. Actually, yeah, I'd go Amir Abdullah at RB. As for wide receiver, I am playing JSN and Jennings. If Laporta is already starting, then I'll just play Disley as your other option. Thank you. Appreciate it, Gio. Alrighty. Somebody asked in the chat, Levis or Allen. I'd rather play Will Levis. Thank you. Carlos Laurie says, I missed my response. Tracy, JSN, and the flex, full PPR. Carlos, so when I originally answered the question, it was JSN as my original suggestion. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Jairus sends in a question. Says, any worries with neighbors? Should I play Pollard or Marvin Harrison? Do I have worries? Sure. I mean, I have worries with every player. There's always arguments to be made against every single one of them. Am I specifically worried enough to where I'm pivoting? Personally, no. But in your circumstance, considering you have solid options in terms of pivoting players, I don't have an issue playing with either of those two. If I was going to suggest one of the two to play instead of Neighbors, it would be Marvin Harrison. But personally, I would play Neighbors there. In the event in which you are worried about it, yeah, you could pivot. I don't have an issue with that. Because again, there's always the possibility of the quarterback play just not being great, or the injury that could be potentially re-aggravated, that could potentially kind of slow him down or make him a lesser play. I could see all of that. But they're also coming off of a situation which, again, I mean, they're going to be in a negative game script. They're coming off of a bye. I would assume that Neighbors will be okay. Like, I'm not too worried about the situation for him. But yeah, I mean, if you want to pivot to Marvin Harrison, I don't have an issue with that. Let's see here. We had a question that came in from Fernando Perez. Thank you, Fernando. I appreciate it. Fernando says, in a PPR, what does it say? DeAndre Hopkins or Rashad White? I'll take Rashad White there. Thank you. Honest Abe sends in a question. Says, your boy Honest Abe is back. Full PPR, Tank, Dell, or Debo? I'd rather play Tank Dell. Thank you. Jera in the chat says, Dobbins or Tracy? Again, a reminder. For those of you who are welcomed and, of course, joining us this morning, hope you guys are doing well on this wonderful Sunday fun day of fantasy football greatness. The rankings that are right here on the right side of the screen that filter every 15 seconds are updated as of this morning. So when you guys ask me questions like Dobbins or Tracy for a half PPR, it gives me cause for concern because it makes me think you guys don't have eyes. Please, the rankings are right there. I'm trying to help. I'm giving them to you guys. Here they are. Come on, take advantage of them, please. Appreciate it. All right, continuing on. Somebody said Houston defense or Kansas City. I'd rather play Houston this week. All righty, we continue on with a question that comes in from Adam Amar, who says, why Levis over DeVito matchup? And additionally, Levis has played the whole season. I mean, obviously he missed some time due to injury. This is DeVito's first start. Are we going to just throw in DeVito and just assume, yeah, you know what, he's going to be great? No. I have DeVito as like my third lowest ranked quarterback on the week. It's not going to be that simple. It says Canales Masterclass today. Canales Masterclass. Good luck with that one, brother. But yeah, I'd much rather play Levis. Again, he's played against some pretty tough defenses in the last couple of weeks and still been highly relevant. Timmy T sends in a question. Let's see here. Where's Timmy T? Says Bates or Seibert rest of the season. I'd rather have Bates. Thank you, Timmy. Appreciate it. Ash sends in a follow-up question. Ash says, in a 10-team full PPR, Otten, Dobbs, Watson, Pittman, or Leggett? Of those available options is Otten and Dobbs. Those are the two that I prefer. Thank you, Ash. Okay, we had a question that came in from SR20Mar, who says, Brooks, Abdullah, or Roshan at running back. Out of those three, I'm playing Abdullah. Number 1, Roshan number 2, Brooks number 3. Okay, we continue on from the next question. We have DZ Dalla, who says, standard scoring, still Bowers over Kelsey. Yes, I play Bowers over Kelsey in every scoring format. Half PPR, full PPR, standard. Does not matter. Across the board, I prefer to play Bowers this week. Thank you. Chris Moraga sends in a question. Half PPR, flex, Christian Watson, Sam Laporta, or Keenan Allen. I'd play Sam Laporta out of all three of those options, Chris. Thank you. Alrighty, let's see here. Somebody in the chat says, Quentin Johnston for JSN. I have Walker and would like a piece of the shootout. You're trading Quentin Johnston for JSN. For rest of season purposes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great option. Asaf says, what happened to Juwan Jennings? Unfortunately, Brock Purdy's not playing today, Asaf. That's the issue. Brock Purdy's absence is going to be definitely something that is a concern and going to limit the overall upside of these players. Sven says, I'm starting Brooks. Listen, I'm starting Brooks in one of my leagues as well. Listen, we're not all in a situation to where we can afford to, make positional moves to where we have fantastic options in every section. But like when I look at Brooks and what he's going to potentially be like exposed to in terms of opportunity, let's put it this way. Jonathan Brooks will be resuming the Miles Sanders role, which again, over the course of the last couple weeks in terms of touches is not great. Okay, in terms of snaps is not great. Chuba Hubbard is the lead back. Chuba Hubbard is the back of the future based on what we've seen this season. So in terms of exposure to opportunity, like last week's or 2 weeks ago, the game in Germany, I'm not even going to count that because he got hurt, but the weeks prior, like he had a 4-touch game against New Orleans, 8-touch game against Denver, 4-touch game against Washington, 4-touch game against Atlanta. Like if he's going to get 4 to 8 touches today, Jonathan Brooks, like again, he's going to be a pretty shitty option, which again, if he's not given the receiving upside, makes him a lesser potential kind of confidence play in the scenario, especially considering it's his first game of the season. And they're playing against Kansas City, which is a horribly difficult matchup to expect anybody to play well in. Thus far this season, they have not allowed a lot of fantasy points to any running back. So yeah, don't expect much. Okay, let's see here. We continue on with a question that came in from Jay Bakes Cakes, who says, cooked question mark, JT Puka neighbors for Kyron, Nico, Reed. Let me see here. In terms of rest of season, I am very comfortable with the idea of taking the Kyron side. I don't have an issue with that actually. I'm okay with that. I'll take the Kyron side. So when you say cooked, I don't know if about cooked, maybe freshly baked. You can smell the aroma of the cookie. Like, I don't know. I think Kyron side's pretty good there for rest of season. All right, let's see here. We scroll down. We had a question from Abby Bronner. Thank you, Abby. Says, you helped me win my first championship last year. Thank you. Now I'm currently 9-2, and I need your help. We have Otten or Disley, and Quentin Johnston or Bucky Irving. Okay. So my primary question to you, Abby, is what is your scoring format? Again, make sure you guys include your scoring format within your questions. If you could just type it in the live chat, I'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Justin McMillan sent in a question, says half PPR flex, Swift, Otten, Disley, Pittman, Dowdle. Of those available in a half PPR, I'm pretty sure I'm going to suggest Swift. Let me just confirm it just so I can cross-reference. Control F, Swift. Yes, Swift is the highest ranked of those available options there, Justin McMillan. So Swift would be my suggestion. Thank you. So yeah, Abby, if you're playing like a full PPR, Abby, it probably ends up being, let me see, where do I have Quentin Johnston in comparison? Maybe you play in a standard. I don't know. So again, let me know what your scoring format is, and I'll more than happily answer that question. Abby says half PPR. Beautiful. Okay, so in this circumstance, Abby, Cade Otton or Disley, I'd prefer to play Cade Otton there this week, and then I'd also prefer to play Bucky Irving over Quentin Johnston. Those are the two that I prefer. So basically, we're playing both Buccaneers, which again has a lot of your eggs within that singular basket, but I think it's a great matchup this week against the New York Giants defense. Thank you. All right, we took care of that. We have a question from Shining, who says, PPR, Kittle or Hawkinson? I prefer to play Hawkinson, especially considering the full PPR format. I know that Hawkinson, especially with the absence of Josh Oliver, the tight end 2 within the roster. Again, we talked about it earlier. We're talking about Josh Oliver and the exposure to opportunity that he's had over the course of the season. Specifically, if we talk about the most recent 3 games in which we have seen Hawkinson active in, he has had 5, 4, and 3 receptions for 58, 52, and 34 receiving yards. So Josh Oliver has definitely been a huge option within the offense that he's obviously been digging into the overall workload of Hawkinson. In the absence, we should see a lot more Hawkinson today, which is very much so the reason why I am playing him ahead of Kittle, obviously with Kittle not having Purdy available. Weber sends in a question. Let's see, Weber, where is your question? Weber says, hey, should I start Cortland Sutton or Tyrone Tracy in the flex? Weber, what is your scoring format? Because I think, okay, like in a full PPR, I'm going to place Cortland Sutton. Let me see what I have in a half PPR. Cortland or Tracy. Like I can justify playing him in a half, but if it's a full, like I think it's just Sutton and I think it's just clearing away that direction. The only time I would ever potentially, there wouldn't actually be a time. No. So, yeah, as of right now, if it's a full PPR, I'm going Sutton. I don't know what your format is. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so you sent in a follow-up, Weber. You said full PPR. Got it. I will play Cortland Sutton there very comfortably again. Over the course of the last month of the season, he has been fantastic in terms of overall receptions. 8, 7, 6, and 7 in the last 4 games. 100, 122, 70, 78. So he's at a base minimum of 14 fantasy points over the course of the last month, just off of receptions and yardage. When you add the overall upside of a touchdown in an advantageous matchup, again, it makes him that much more appealing. So Sutton is the play there. Thank you, Weber. Moving on to a question that came in from Lucky Slevin, who says, full PPR, I have Otton. Flex Bucky or Jonnu Smith? I'd rather flex Bucky, and it's not even remotely close. Thank you. Troobs McGee sends in a question. Troobs, where is your question? Says, in a PPR, Ikine or Thielen with Coker out? As it currently stands in a full PPR scoring format, I have Thielen ahead of him. Thank you. Appreciate it. Moving on to a question that came in from Alan D, who says, trade Sun God, Brian Robinson for Kyron and Evans? Personally, I probably keep... Okay, so hear me out. Alan, if you're in a situation, okay, where the week 14 bye that will have Brian Robinson inactive and absent because of his bye week, if that is going to be the reason why you make this trade and that's why you potentially go through this course of action, then sure. But if not, and if you're just like, hey, I'm just preparing for the fantasy playoffs, I'd rather keep what you have on roster. Thank you. Sven in the chat says, I have too many players on bye, cannot drop anyone. For possible boom or bust players, he's my boom player. Yeah, best of luck, brother. Let's just hope for the best. Let's see here. Paul S says Tracy or Jennings in the chat standard league. Paul, I'm going to play Tracy there. Michael Russo in the chat says Murray or Herbert. I have Harrison. Murray or Herbert. I would prefer to play Herbert there. Thank you. Custom Charm Farm says any underdog pick'ems today. Yeah, there was a lot that I suggested in the last couple live streams that we've conducted that I've put together plays. If I was to suggest them, let me go ahead and see if I can pull it up just so I can maybe throw it on screen for a quick couple seconds. Maybe that's something that I can just kind of flow through really quickly. Let's see, what do we have here? Okay, so I have a bunch. And when I say a bunch, I mean we spent 30 minutes on the live stream the other day just putting together plays, okay? So let me go ahead and throw this on the other screen, and then we'll get to it right now. And then, so for those of you who potentially want to follow or tail these kind of potential picks, you can. So this is the first play. Anytime touchdown for these three players. So 8-game streak of touchdowns for Amon-Ra. 7-game streak of Mixon touchdowns and an 11-game streak for Henry. So I just took this anytime touchdown for all three. AJ Brown's done this in every game this season. Devon Achane has done this every game with 2 of this season. Jake Bates has done this 6 of the last 7 games. Pretty easy. Jahmyr Gibbs has done this 9 out of the last 9 games. Bates has done this again 6 of the last 7. Josh Jacobs has done this 6 of the last 6. Again, if you want to look at the numbers exactly, because I'm going through it quickly, pause. Thank you. David Montgomery, touchdown, 8 of the last 10. James Conner, 6 of the last 6. Brian Robinson, 6 of the last 8. Anthony Richardson and Caleb Williams throwing interceptions each, mainly because both those defenses, Minnesota and Detroit, have both gotten an interception every single game this season. And then the final player would be Jonnu Smith receptions, 6 of the last 6. Travis Kelce receptions, 5 of the last 7. Bowers because he's a stud, and Goddard because of the absence of Devontae Smith. Thank you. Okay. Oop, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's go back here and continue answering questions. So those were the overall underdog entries that I made for this weekend. There's some other ones that I've made, but again, I don't want to suggest them because quite frankly, I'm not confident. Like there's one that I made that was like, oh, first touchdown of the game, and I put $1 bet on it. Like I'm not trying to we're not that kind of desperate at the moment, are we? All right. So we continue on from a question that came in from A Word Only. Says, 10-team PPR, flex Pollard or Hawkinson? I'd rather play Pollard still. Thank you. I know I gave a pretty resoundingly great argument for Hawkinson and why you might want to play him, but Pollard is fantastic in the absence of Tyjae Spears against Houston. Raider77 says, I can't decide between Wan'Dale Robinson or Slayton. I'd play Wan'Dale Robinson very comfortably, especially considering, I mean, look, I think Tommy DeVito's rapport with both of them is pretty strong. But the way that this offense has kind of functioned, it has either been throwing it to Neighbors or throwing it to Wan'Dale Robinson, and that's pretty much been the 1-2 combo as it stands. Okay, let's see here. Continuing on, let's go ahead. What does it say? Favorite full PPR running back and wide receiver, says Bills Mafia. Full PPR running back and wide receiver. In a full PPR, my highest ranked running back is Devon Achane, and in a at wide receiver, it's AJ Brown. So Devon Achane and AJ Brown are my 2 highest ranked players at running back and wide receiver this week. Thank you. Again, for those of you who are joining us this morning, welcome. The rankings right here are up to date as of this morning. So if you have any questions as to whether you're playing Trey McBride or Kate Otten, again, the rankings are numbered for that exact purpose. To wonder whether you're playing Will Lutz or John Parker Romo, again, the rankings are available. So that is the purpose of them. If you guys want the rankings in regards to interpositional for a half PPR 4-point per passing touchdown, they are on screen available. Outside of that, again, like I mentioned, Patreon users have the rankings available. It's already been posted on the channel. If you guys want to join Patreon, there's a link down in the description. Or, of course, if you sign up using code Andrew via Underdog, the email has been sent out earlier this morning around 2 a.m. Appreciate it. Thank you. Make sure you check your spam folder because, in fact, it could land there instead of your normal inbox. Thank you. All right, continuing on with some of these questions. We have Justin S., who says full PPR Neighbors, Kittle, or Downs in a flex. Neighbors, Kittle, Downs. Yeah, as of right now, Neighbors is going to be the guy that I'm rolling with there. Thank you. Achi Supreme sends in a question. Says full PPR Kyron / Gibbs and TJ Hawkinson / McBride. Okay, so am I picking one from each of the 2 groups? If I'm playing either Kyron or Gibbs in a full PPR, I'd rather play Gibbs. If I'm playing either TJ Hawkinson or McBride in a full PPR, I'm playing McBride. So McBride and Gibbs will be the 2 of those, individuals. Thank you. If Lad sits, play Palmer, Bateman, or Noah Brown. Murica, you would play Bateman, but he's not going to sit. I don't know why you guys are so concerned about it. Why is there such a, who is fear-mongering you guys into thinking he's not going to play? Is there a report that specifically we heard somebody say he's not going to play this week or he's doubtful to play? Where's all the worry coming from? I'm very curious because I have no concern at all. I'm not even sweating it a single cent. Let's see here. Easy E sends in a question. Says questions in the chat. All right, Easy. Let me see if I can find it. Easy. Don't see any questions in the chat. You're going to have to type that in, my man. Owen says 2 questions. Jaden Daniels or Jordan Love? Again, the rankings on screen have Jaden Daniels ahead. And Tucker Kraft or Mark Andrews? I also have Mark Andrews ahead. Thank you, Owen. Let's see here. Jaden Reed or Aaron Jones in a full PPR? I'd rather play Jaden Reed there. Aaron Edwards says start 2, DJ Moore, Thielen, Disley. DJ Moore and Disley are the 2 that I'd play there. I don't know what the format is, but I'm going to assume just like half PPR, meeting everyone in the middle is pretty safe in that circumstance. Let's see here. Where's Easy? Easy says half PPR. Okay. But where's your question, Easy? I don't see your question in the chat, brother. You may be one of those. You may be in the unfortunate situation to where your question has been typed in so many times that you got auto moderated, like shadow banned. If that's the case, just restructure your sentence and then retype it in, and hopefully it'll pop up. Thank you. Admiring Instant sends in a question. Says in a half PPR, Ertz or Waddle? Thoughts? Thank you. Okay, so there's multiple ways that we can go about this. I think objectively, Waddle has been so inconsistent that it is difficult to start him. So, in the event in which you, let's see, where do I have Ertz in a half PPR? Zach Ertz is there. Waddle sits, where's Waddle? Control F, Waddle. I have Zach Ertz 3 spots behind Waddle. Am I comfortable with that? Yes, I am. I'll still play Waddle there. I'm willing to go to the ends of the earth with Waddle and have him bury my fantasy team if I need it to be. Again, if you don't want to take the risk, play Ertz. They're very closely ranked. Okay, let's see here. We had a question that came in from Exquisite, who says, full PPR, who do I flex, Debo, Bucky, or Tracy? I'd play Bucky Irving very confidently. Number 1. Number 2 would be Tracy. Number 3 would be Debo. Thank you. Quentin Johnston or Austin Eckler? Very, very comfortably going to play Quentin Johnston there, Joey. Very comfortably. Z Marley says, should I start J.K. Dobbins over Debo? Yes, absolutely. Game Over says, Stafford or Richardson today in a full PPR? I prefer to play Richardson there like it says on screen. Dowdle or Tank Dell in a PPR, says Ethan. I'd much rather play Tank Dell. It says, would you still play Leggett over Pierce in a non-PPR? I think I still would, but arguably, look, the way that I have it, at least in a half PPR as it currently stands, like I have Leggett as my number 36 and I have Alec Pierce as my number 37. They are quite literally back to back. They are in the same tier. The separation of, they are literally have a almost identical fantasy point projection from me. So at the moment, really, I mean, in a non-PPR, I guess theoretically, if I was to restructure how it's set up, because I project Xavier to have more receptions, with the lack of said receptions, Alec Pierce could theoretically be more valuable in a standard league. So yeah, I don't have an issue with that. No problem at all. I think again, I'm hoping, listen, let's take a Prage moment of silence here. Let's ask the fantasy gods to bless us. I really hope that this game between Detroit and the Indianapolis Colts is going to be a competitive one. I really do. I don't want a one-sided affair. That's the last thing that I'm looking for. I need for the Colts to push Jared Goff and push the offense of the Lions so that they can continue to score. Now, again, they always want to continue to score because they want to embarrass teams, but I also want the other side. I want Richardson, Taylor, Downs, Pittman, and Alec all to be relevant. So let's just hope the fantasy gods bless us with a great game today. Heat South Beach sends in a question, says in a half PPR, should I play Hopkins over Ladd or wait? I would wait. Palmer and Deontay Johnson are free agents. Feel like Hopkins is due. Really need help. Yeah, look, I don't disagree with the overall idea that he's due because, again, a couple weeks back against Tampa Bay looked incredible. It looked like he was just flawlessly, kind of seamlessly transitioned within the offense. But unfortunately, again, like I mentioned earlier, his lack of overall snaps is a very high concern of mine, to where, again, if he's only going to play like 40-50% of the snaps, his overall opportunity share is lacking. Now, JC Horn obviously limited in practice all week long, so it does give him a little bit of a potential advantage in the case in which JC Horn is a lesser self. But as of right now, between those two options, I am without a doubt, based on where I have Ladd McConkey ranked, I am absolutely willing to risk it. And again, like I've said, I don't see it as a risk. I don't know what Ladd McConkey. Let's look up who is fear-mongering you guys on the internet to forcing you to think he's not going to play. I'm legitimately curious. Who is the primary source for your guys' uncertainty? Because I am telling you objectively that unless he was given a doubtful designation, he's gonna play. I need to change my email so I can log into the right one. Let's see here. Switch account. Let's go here. Yeah. I don't even have a question in my mind. He's going to play and he's going to ball out. I mean, I don't even see anything on the internet. Let's see. Maybe one of these websites is causing the concern. Yeah, I don't get it. All right, continuing on. We had a question that came in from Croza. Croza, thank you very much. Says PPR start one, Disley or Wandale Robinson. I would rather play Disley. I think he has more touchdown upside and just as much potential receiving kind of baseline. And how do we feel about this trade? Quentin Johnston and Travis Etienne for Javonte Williams. I don't feel great about trading for Javonte Williams in any sequence because, again, the backfield as a whole is a complete disaster and a mess. So do that on your own, terms and on your own, transgressions or, whatever approach you want to go about it. Going forward, the fantasy playoffs, Indianapolis, Chargers, Cincinnati are not terrible matchups. I just don't want to have any association with Denver's backfield. Just in the same way in which I really, for rest of season, don't really want any association with Las Vegas's backfield. Do they have players that could have, value and could, theoretically within given singular matchups play well? Absolutely. But in this case, I'm not so keen on the idea of making that trade. Not Steve Rogers sends in a question. Says Tracy or Quentin Johnston in a PPR. As of right now, let's see where do I have them ranked. I'll take Quentin Johnston there. I have Tracy. Okay, look, here's the thing. So as it currently stands, I have Tracy and Quentin Johnston back to back within my rankings. You could go about it either way. As of right now, I prefer to play Quentin Johnston. Thank you. Rogo sends in a question. Says, "What's up, Andrew? Got what seems to be an easy week, but I ended up dropping Moody for Seibert, which is correct. Well done, Rogo. Got Devontae Smith on the IR and picked up Arizona's defense with Detroit starting. How do I? Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what I would have suggested, and well done. I mean, I'm pretty sure I told you to do that, Rogo, earlier this week, but yeah, well done. George says, why no Stroud? Let him throw some accurate passes one of these weeks. Listen, I mentioned it earlier. Stroud's my number 17. If I was going to rank him, he'd be at very tops, and then my number 15 ranked quarterback. Again, if you want to play Stroud, you'd only ever start him over Sam Darnold or Stafford. Outside of starting him over those two, I would not trust starting him over the alternative options at quarterback. I prefer the rest of the groups, upside. Shackle Free says in a question. Shackle, where is your question, though? Do I see it in live chat? Shackle Free says, in a half PPR RB2 and super flex, win or sit home. Okay, so win or go home, pretty much. Please analyze how KC will use Hunt better than Lions Montgomery. I have mixed it. How they will use Hunt better? Listen, it's not a matter of whether they use him better. It's purely a matter of Hunt has no competition. Objectively, has no competition. It is Hunt or it is no one else that scores on the ground. Montgomery has Gibbs. I mean, in itself, inherently, there are reasons why Montgomery at times this season will disappear. There are games over the course of the season where he doesn't score touchdowns and he's outright gone. So when we talk about matchup in itself, on top of the fact that it should be a one-sided affair where the Kareem Hunt Kansas City Chiefs are taking an early lead, if you assume, or as we implicate, if we're projecting him to score at least one touchdown, all of the touches going in his direction, 20 plus, in 5 of the last 6 games he's played, I mean, in itself, if we talk about opportunity leading to success in fantasy football, he'll touch the ball more, he has a better matchup, and he's the lone back. So why else would I not start him over Montgomery? And then your other thing is I have Mixon as my RB1, I have Murray as my super flex, and I have Downs over Jennings. Agree, yes. Downs over Jennings for sure, Murray for sure in the super flex. But yeah, I mean, look, if you want to play Montgomery, I don't have an issue with the overall approach because, again, he's an automatic 13 points like we've talked about this week. But I think Hunt has just as strong of a baseline, but higher upside. Okay, we continue on with a question that came in from Christian, who says, Harrison or Sutton? I'd rather play Sutton. Thank you. Moving on to Little Fat Bear, who says, start one, flex one. Okay. Quentin Johnston, Jalen Waddle, or Javonte Williams? I will take Quentin Johnston and Javonte Williams there. Thank you. So Quentin Johnston is wide receiver, Javonte Williams in the flex. Thank you. Tracy or Goddard in a full PPR? I'd rather play Tracy there. Okay, let's see here. If we scroll down, Evan Me says, hey, Andrew. Hope you're well. I'm doing well, Evan. I'm glad that you were able to type that in. Says half PPR. Flex. Okay, last flex spot. Christian Watson, Jordan Addison, Waddle, or Abdullah. In a PPR, I'm going to legitimately, well, okay, let's see here. Where's Waddle? Waddle is there. Addison's right behind him. Abdullah's like, yeah. So as of right now, the way I currently have it, Evan Me is Waddle as the highest ranked player. Addison number 2, Abdullah 3, Christian Watson 4. That's the way that I have it. And then you said, or should I pick up Disley and put him in that slot? If I was in your position, Evan Me, I'd pick up Disley and I'd start him. Thank you. And then Shackle also said, follow up, wondering if we can trust Mahomes to hand off. What do you mean, can we trust the hand off? What is Shackle? Listen. You have to understand, Shackle, that just because you saw what you saw last week does not mean that that is going to persist for the future, right? A singular performance is not a absolute indicator of 100% future success and or determination of what the future can potentially hold. Now, in some instances, you can theoretically build on that. But in the case of specifically last week against Buffalo, where they were in a negative game script, you have to understand that in a negative game script where you're down 2 scores, you're not going to run the ball 20 times with Kareem Hunt. You're going to run it 14 times. But in the case of all the other games in which they're winning, they have a controlled lead, and they're, of course, trying to kill the clock. I mean, it is by far and away, it is just purely the Kareem Hunt show. The Bringer of Rain says, hey, Andrew, what's the news with Zamir White? Can we find any news on him to start Abdullah if he starts in half PPR? Got it. So let me just check something really quickly just before I make a comment on that. So here's the current circumstance. We are not going to be given information regarding Zamir White nor Alexander Mattison until about 4 hours from right now. So if we're talking about PST, you're not going to hear any news until about noon PST or maybe 3 p.m. Eastern in regards to the status of Zamir White or Alexander Mattison, because you got to remember that game between Las Vegas and Denver is a 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time matchup. So the two of them are not going to be taking each other on for quite a while. So we're not going to get the absolute indicator of the status of those players until 3 hours from now. Again, both Madison and Zamir White were both given doubtful tags like we've talked about all season long. We have not seen a single player be given the doubtful designation and still play. Therefore, the expectation is that he is likely not going to be active. But again, you won't know the complete 100% fact of the matter until 3 hours from now. Thank you. All right, we move on to a question that came in from, let's see here. Schizotron says, short on running back this week. I'm 6-5. Do I drop someone like Taysom Hill or DJ Moore to pick up Amir for 1 week? I have McBride, Reed, Debo, Ridley, and Evans. I mean, look, here's the fact of the matter. If there is somebody on roster. Okay, so here's my question, Schizotron. Can you do me a favor and type in the chat? Who are you starting at running back this week? I'm curious outright, like, do you have an open roster spot, or are you in a position to where you have other running backs, but you would consider picking up Amir? That's my question, Schizotron. Let me know in the live chat so that I can go back and forth within this overall dialogue. Okay, so let's see here. So yeah, Evan Me, if you could do me a favor, pick up Disley and play him. Sam Castillo says, full PPR, pick 2, Debo, Ridley, Quentin Johnson. I'll play Ridley and Quentin Johnson. Those are my 2 highest ranked of the bunch, Sam Castillo. Thank you. Joel sends it a question. Or Joel says, in a half PPR, Eckler, Thielen, Wanda Robinson likely for flex. If I'm playing one of those 4 in the flex position, I probably end up... It's either Eckler or Thielen. I mean, ultimately, it's one of those 2. I feel a little bit more confident in the idea of playing Thielen, though. Thank you. Moving on to Rockout, who says 1 wide receiver, 2 flex. Hunt, Tracy, McLaurin, Marvin Harrison, Downs, JMO. Out of those available options, I am playing McLaurin at wide receiver 1. I am playing Hunt as one of the flex options, and I'm going to follow up with playing Marvin Harrison as the other. So Hunt, McLaurin, and Marvin Harrison. Thank you. Moving on to a question that comes in from Criminal Minds 06, says Worthy instead of Aikine. Yes, I do expect Mahomes to go off. So there's a little bit more of a variable opportunity for Worthy to be touchdown related. Troy Anderson says, does Tracy gain/lose value with DeVito rest of the season? To be determined. Now, the reason why I say specifically to be determined is because, like we talked about yesterday and the day before in terms of the live streams, once, of course, DeVito was designated as a starter. When we look back at 2023, weeks 9 through 15, where DeVito was the full-time starter within those games, he was averaging 5.8 targets per game to his running backs. So if we're going to be in a very similar situation where DeVito is a very conscious check down quarterback and just trying to get the ball out of his hands to keep the drives alive, if he's going to consciously continue to check it down in the direction of Tracy, going forward, his value could very much so increase, especially in full PPR purposes because of that. Now, again, I don't think DeVito is that much of a downgrade from Daniel Jones. In fact, he could potentially even be an upgrade. We'll have to wait and see. But in terms of Tracy, I think the lack of overall potential touches he may get in the running game because of negative game scripts could theoretically be upgraded based on the receiving upside in a full PPR or half PPR that he may be able to attain over the course of the next coming weeks here. So I think it's actually a positive in the long term. Hopefully, of course, we'll have to wait and see, to be determined. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came in from Sumay, who says, J.K. Dobbins or Jaden Reed in a full PPR? I'd rather play Jaden Reed there. Moving on, Hawkinson or Jonnu? Let's see. I'm probably going to go with... that one's tough, man. I have them both ranked back-to-back to one another. Hawkinson and Jonnu, both tier 5 tight ends, number 8 and number 9. Honestly, if I was in your position, I'd play Hawkinson. Thank you. Raghav sends in a follow-up. Raghav, where is your question? Let's see if I can find it. Skizatron says, I only have Gibbs and Kamara on roster. Got it. So, Skizatron, the way that I would go about it, considering you are in need of an RB2 this week... Skiz, I'm going to be honest. I think, oh man, I think you drop DJ Moore there because I don't see you playing him ahead of the alternatives like Evans and Reed and D. Yeah, I would just drop DJ Moore, pick him up, and because you need the running back this week, that's what you play. I don't want to drop Taysom though because I think Taysom going forward is going to be very valuable. Thank you. All right, so let me see here. Where is the question we were looking from Raghav? Let's see. Control F. Raghav. Raghav says, PPR, how big of an upgrade is Disley to Kittle this week? Do you feel a good benching someone of his caliber if there isn't a major difference? I think there's a major difference, mainly because the quarterback play is the issue. Do I feel comfortable sitting Kittle? No, I don't ever feel comfortable sitting a stud player that has scored a touchdown, on average every week this season. He scored 7 touchdowns in the last 7 games. The only issue is, again, the quarterback play is not comparable to what we originally see with Purdy. So because of the lack of production that we may eventually see here in this circumstance, I'd rather just pivot to an alternative option. In your case, if you want to still play Kittle, I still think Kittle has value. I just think his upside is capped because of the quarterback play as it currently stands. Rogo says, does it matter if I start Baker or Bo today? No, doesn't matter. I don't care. I think both are fantastic. Again, like I said yesterday, I think I mentioned this. Maybe it was to you, Rogo, or somebody else. I specifically said, and I quote, if somebody told me, hey, Andrew, you can't play Bo this week, you're not allowed to, you have to play Baker. Okay, cool, thanks. Have a good one. Like, I'm still going to clap you. Like, you're just going to get cooked on. Baker is that guy. He is a stud. Don't have any hesitation with that at all. Bryce Lawson sends in a question, says, who has a higher upside, Disley or Jonnu Smith? I believe Jonnu Smith has the higher upside. Thank you. Carolina Nurse sends in a question, says, full PPR, who do I flex, Eckler, Ertz, or Andrews? Between the 3 of them, I'd rather play Zach Ertz. Thank you. Non-PPR, Swift or Jennings? Zach, I would play Swift there. Okay, let's do this. Wade, the third, sends in a question. Says, would you trade J.K. Dobbins and Devontae Adams for James Cook? Depends on what kind of wide receiver depth you have. If you're going to give away a 2-for-1, and the 1-for-1 running back exchange isn't like, there isn't a huge variable difference between the 2 of them. If we're going to be in that situation to where you're making a move of this caliber, I'm just going to straight up ask you, like, what kind of wide receivers do you have on roster? If you got studs across the board, then sure, we can make this trade. Otherwise, I'm not interested. Chris Rosado says, Stroud or Stafford? Personally, I'd prefer to play Stafford. Again, I have them back-to-back ranks. Stafford as my number 16, Stroud as my number 17. If you want to play Stroud, I don't have an issue with it. Again, like I mentioned earlier, the highest I would rank Stroud this week is 15 ahead of Sam Darnold. Reed or Neighbors? I'd rather play, as of right now, again, considering... All right, so there's multiple ways you can go about this, right? You could just take the variable kind of... If you don't want to take the risk of what Neighbors provides in terms of the quarterback change and the potential hamstring, if you don't want to risk it, you can just play Reed. Otherwise, I have Neighbors 1 spot ahead of him. But again, they're back-to-back, so really their variable difference is not much. Tano Martin says, hey, brother, in a PPR flex, Bucky, Tracy, or Hawkinson? I'm playing Bucky there. Thank you. Henry or Abdullah in the flex? PPR, Greg Phillips. I would play Hunter Henry there. Somebody said Baker or Daniels. Rankings are on screen. Downs or Swift in a flex full PPR? I'm playing Downs there, Dustin. Tracy or McConkey in a full PPR? Nick C. I'm playing McConkey there. People underestimate how trash Brandon Allen is. Yeah, he's not great. He's just, I wouldn't say that he's trash because, again, he's still an NFL quarterback, right? So he's still a solid player. Okay, he deserves to be where he's at. But you're going to see the variable difference between what it looks like to have Brock Purdy and Brandon Allen in the offense, and from there you'll be able to then understand why I've moved players down so considerably in comparison to when Brock Purdy's active. Okay, let's see here. We had a question from Donovan Jordan. Donovan, thank you very much. It says full PPR, Tank, Chuba, or Eckler. In a full PPR, I'm playing. It's either Chuba or Tank. Personally, the way I have it ranked is Tank Dell is the highest. Thank you. Let me see here. I don't really want to play Chuba there. Honestly, I don't. Not in comparison to Tank Dell. Dylan sends in a question. Says, hope all is well. It is. Thank you very much, Dylan. Says, in a 2-quarterback league, we have Stroud is a lock, but I need to pick one between Levis and Tommy Cutlets. Play Levis there. Thank you. All right, the Jane Jones sends in a question. Says, Tracy or Neighbors in a half PPR? I'd rather honestly play Tracy at that point. I'll just take the overall touches as a guarantee. Thank you. And he also has more touchdown potential for upside, especially if they get down to the goal line. Rogo says, I super chat so much, he thinks he talks to me last night. It's one of these nights, brother. They're all blend together. I do the same thing every single day for the last 12 weeks. Everything's blending, brother. I'm beginning to go schizo over here. Thank you. J Max sends in a question. Says, PPR flex. JT versus Detroit, Wanda Robinson versus Tampa Bay, or Debo versus Green Bay. I'm 100% going to play JT 10 times out of 10 there. Thank you. Tamir K says, PPR, Eckler, Myers, or Abdullah. I'm playing in a non-PPR. Oh, God. I don't like any of those plays. I'm going to honestly just play Myers there. Pineapple Express sends in a question. Says, flex Tank Dell or Sam Laporta in a half PPR. I'm probably going to play Dell there. Let me confirm. Yeah, I have Dell ranked higher. Thank you. Appreciate it. Theo says, Jacoby Myers or Javonte Williams, half PPR. I'd rather play Javonte there. AJ Reddy says, Schoonmaker or Dobbs in the flex, full PPR. I'd rather probably play Dobbs there. Tony Pollard or Bucky Irving in a full PPR. I'd rather play Bucky Irving there. Trey McBride or Jonnu Smith. I'd rather play Trey McBride there. Aaron Jones, Mondre, Bucky, full PPR, pick 2. I'm playing Ramondre and Bucky there, see me. Bills Mafia says Mayfield, Evans, or Nick Sutton. Okay, so if you're setting like a Bills Mafia, if you're setting like a DFS lineup or something of that exchange, if that is what you are approaching with, as it currently stands, I'm going to go with the Knicks Sutton, combo. I don't know how much their values are in those scenarios, but that's the way I'd go about it. Ibrahim sends in a question. Thank you, Ibrahim. Says Jennings or Hawkinson, Addison. Okay, so between those two, depends on scoring format. What's your scoring format, Ibrahim? Because as it stands, I could justify playing Hawkinson over Jennings. If we're talking about like a half PPR, I'll just play Jennings there. As for your second question, if we're talking about Addison, Douglas, Dobbs, I'll just play in a half PPR. If I'm picking 2, I'm just going to play Dobbs and Addison. Thank you. Anthony C says Ridley or Downs in a PPR. Ridley or Downs? As of right now, I have Ridley ranked ahead. Thank you. Javier sends in a question. Says, where's Javier's question? Javier, where art thou? Javier, do me a favor, type in the live chat when you get a chance. Wade says, continued from the from other question. Stud wide receivers is best running back I can get. Got it. Okay, cool. Sounds good to me, Wade. Then let's make the move. Let's get James Cook for the future. Sounds good to me. Thank you. Ghetto says half PPR to start Chuba Hubbard or Ridley. Honestly, I'd rather play Ridley. Honestly. Bucky or Tracy, full PPR. Oscar, I honestly rather play Bucky there. Hurts or Baker? I'd rather play Hurts. Bryce Young or Tommy DeVito? I'd rather play Tommy DeVito there, Hermit King. Shooter Jenkins says, should I start Quentin Johnston or DeAndre Hopkins? I'd rather start Quentin Johnston. Again, a reminder for all of you guys. The rankings that are right here are up to date as of this morning. So if you guys have any questions in regards to positional rankings, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, kicker, defense, this is the way that I'd go about it, and this is what I'm going to default to every time because these are the rankings that I've completed, and this is what I like. This is what I pretty much provide via like Patreon, Underdog, the emails you receive. But the only difference is this is limited to 36 running backs instead of like 48, or it's limited to 36 wide receivers in comparison to 72, etc. Additionally, it does not include flex rankings on screen. But again, yeah, the rankings on screen are the way that I go about it. Somebody asked, We Buy Home says JD5 or Jalen Hurts. I'm playing Jalen Hurts. Also, defense, Bucks or Fins. I prefer the Bucks today. Thank you. Luis Castillo says, in a 10-team standard, Ertz in for Andrews. Henry is on the waiver wire. Grab Henry and start over. Yes, I would. I would do that. Alejandro says, thank you. Appreciate it, Alejandro. Oh, he's asking me a question. Your top fantasy team right now? Oh, brother. Listen, I play in too many leagues to even get into this conversation. Mo sends in a question. Where are you, Mo? Mo says, Jacoby Myers or Quentin Johnston? I'd much rather play Quentin Johnston. It's not even remotely close in that scenario. Thank you. Especially considering Jacoby Myers has to deal with Patrick Surtain. It's just, it's not close. Okay, let's see here. We had a question that came in after we took care of Mo. We have BT Duh Youngin, who says, thanks for Big Bo Nix last week. Cyber or Moody? I'd rather play Cyber this week. Thank you. Ricky Retro sends in a question. Thank you, Ricky. Ricky says, Downs or Hawkinson? Half PPR. I'd rather play Downs still. Appreciate you. Thank you. Have a great day. Skeleton says, half PPR 2 flex out of Stevenson, Dobbins, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Give me Stevenson and JSN there, Skeleton, very comfortably. Bucky Irving or Terry McLaurin in a half PPR? I'd rather play. Ooh, that's a really good question, actually. Wait, where does my projection have it? McLaurin. I have McLaurin. Where's Bucky? I have McLaurin ahead of him, honestly. Any underdog picks? Yeah, we talked about it earlier on in the live stream. If you take the live stream and just rewind, there's a section in which you can see the background changes. Go to that section and find it. I don't know how long into the stream it was, though. Hi, Andrew. Drop Kansas City defense for Ingram. I have Denver. If you're okay, so here's the thing. Let me look at the Chiefs schedule. So I'd like to play the Chiefs defense next week, but considering you'll probably play Denver next week, I have no problem with this swap at all. I'm cool with it. Sounds good to me. Will Mike Evans be on a snap count? Based on what we have heard from the head coach, he said that there's no limitations to him. Javier Martinez sends in a question, says, Rashad White or Juwan Jennings? I'd rather play Rashad White. Thank you. Says, would you drop Brooks for Jonnu? I have Otten and Kincaid. No, I'm comfortable playing Otten today, Oscar. Kyle says, okay, we took care of that one. Ando says, Mike Evans or Josh Jacobs? Ando, 1,000% playing Josh Jacobs there. Taran says, is Baker quote-unquote safe versus Goff can offer? Goff can go 9 for 30, it seems. Yeah, 9 or 30, yeah. I mean, yeah, really, you're not wrong. Baker is the quote-unquote safe play, but he also has, I think, just as much upside because of the matchup itself and what we've seen out of Baker this season, especially with Evans returning. It gives him the extra upside potential. Let's see here. Gucci Han Louis Han says, in a full PPR, should I start Marvin Harrison over Ladd McConkey because of injury? Nope. Again, I don't know who's fear-mongering you guys, but I don't appreciate that. It's causing you guys to lose your minds over an injury that isn't really something that we should be concerning about. Alex Songrass sends in a question. Says, weather an issue for the Bucks game. Heard 30-mile-per-hour winds. I don't know where we're hearing this from. Again, you guys know my situation about weather. Unless we're getting the downpour of the ultimate tsunami of a storm, I'm not concerned. Again, looking at the most recent report that I have on screen, based on the source that I use, there's quote unquote gusts of wind, right? But that's not a consistent thing. Otherwise, the actual wind is 13 to 15 miles per hour. There are going to be gusts that are up to 30, but that's not something that we should be worrying about. That's not a consistent factor within the upcoming contest. Thank you. Again, let's just put this into perspective. When we have Jameis Winston on Thursday night throwing in the snow globe game and Russell Wilson completing passes in that game where no one can see and the winds are fucking moving, let's trust that the quarterbacks are good enough to even handle, 15 mile per hour winds, 15 to 20, but it's not going to be a big deal. Marcel Vega says, any additional underdog plays for today? For today? I mean, again, look, we can go over. Let's see. Do I still have the link up? No, I don't. Okay, maybe we can go over it in a little bit. Maybe at the end of the live stream. Maybe like the last 10 minutes. Still got to answer more questions. Okay, we move on to Mo, who had a follow-up question. Mo, where's your question? Mo says, Mark Andrews or Hawkinson? I'd rather play Hawkinson there, Mo. Thank you. All right, then we move on to a question that came in from John Hernandez, who says, hey, Andrew, remember I lost by 0.5 points MNG last week? Post MNG? I don't even know what the heck MNG is. Morning? Okay. Since then, I moved Burrow / BTJ for Connor / Goddard and moved Tracy for Otten. Better tight end, better running backs. Okay, let's hope for the best. Let's hope for the best, brother. We got to keep capturing victories, though. All right, let's see here. Mr. 5000 in the chat says, half PPR starting Kate Otten at tight end, Amir Abdullah or Kittle within the flex. I'd honestly, at that point, just play Kittle. Honestly. I'm not going to play Amir Abdullah over him. The End Gaming says, I need a flex this week. Pierce, Leggett, Josh Palmer, Roshan Johnson, and Schoonmaker. Of all those available options, I'm just going to play Leggett, honestly. Schoonmaker is not a bad option, though. But again, I don't think he's going to get himself 10 targets again this week. It'd be very much so difficult to potentially predict that. Let's see here. We continue on. Bucky or Evans in a PPR. Let me check where I have them ranked, and I'll tell you right now. I'm pretty sure I have Evans ranked higher, but I'll confirm this. I do have Evans ranked higher than in a full PPR. Thank you. Hi, Andrew. Non-PPR flex, Leggett or Benson? I'm playing Leggett there. Slurms says, should I stash Jordan Mason? Was thinking of getting Romeo Dobbs. I have JT, Breece Hall, and Montgomery. I'd stash Romeo Dobbs instead. Thank you. All right, what do we have here? Chuba Hubbard should get the bulk of the carries. Yep, that's expected. Arizona Cardinals have downgraded Max Melton due to illness. Okay, very well. Jay Glazer says 10 teams have reached out to Daniel Jones. Okay, nothing crazy. Okay, we're keeping it moving. No new reports. We're good to go. Says McConkey is listed as questionable. Yeah, hashtag relax. Thank you, Cricks. Exactly. I couldn't have said it better, brother. Schnabel says Quentin Johnston, Jaden Reed, or Josh Downs. Reed and Johnston are my two highest ranked, Schnabel, in that circumstance, in a full PPR. Okay, J-Rod, thank you very much. J-Rod says Henry or Dell in the flex full PPR. Let me see where I have Dell in comparison to him. Arguably, I think Hunter Henry could be played over Dell. In this given week, I'm going to play Tank Dell, though. Again, if you want to play Henry, I have no issue with it. I'm going to play Dell, though. I feel very comfortable regarding that. Can I play Disley or Quentin Johnston together? Yes, you can. Absolutely, Shooter. Absolutely. Fabi says, Tracy or JSN in a half PPR. Let me see where I have Tracy in comparison to him in a half. Tracy or JSN. I have JSN ranked higher. Hive sends in a question. Says Nix or Mahomes. I'd rather play Bo Nix. McLaurin or Jackson Smith and Jigba. I'd rather play, well, in a full PPR. Let me see where I have JSN because that's a little bit different of a situation. Okay, so in a full PPR, I have Jackson Smith as my number 13, only just one spot behind McLaurin. So even in that circumstance, I'm going to suggest you play Mahomes and McLaurin, their Hive Salon. Thank you. Lenny V23 says full PPR. Debo, Quentin Johnston, Adam Thielen. I'm playing Quentin Johnston there. Thank you. Matt Glore sends in a question. Says Dowdle, Worthy, or Schoonmaker, or Christian Watson, excuse me. Of those available, I'd probably feel most comfortable rolling with Schoonmaker out of the group. I'm going to be totally honest, but I think the safest play is probably Worthy. Chuba Hubbard or Jameson Williams, PPR. I'd rather play Chuba there. Gabriel says start 3, Hunt, Pollard, Jacobs, Tracy, Brian Robinson. I'm playing Hunt, Jacobs, and Brian Robinson there, Gabriel. Why no Hidden Gems episode? Because there's 6 teams on bye. There's not enough players that I feel confident in. Yeah, so what I'll go ahead and do, again, really quickly, Underdog. Let me go ahead and throw this up on screen really quickly. We'll go over it, and we'll keep it moving, okay? So let's open up all these plays for this weekend, and then... Okay, here we go. Quick and easy. We'll get these done, and then we'll go back to answering questions, and then we'll close out today's live stream, and let's hope for a great Sunday, shall we? Okay, so these are the plays for this weekend. This is what we put together on Friday night, okay? Anytime touchdowns for these 3 players. Continuing on. Receptions for these 2, PATs made for this. Then we move on to rushing yards, PAT. Rushing touchdown, receptions, interceptions, and then receptions across the board. Got it? If you need to specifically look at one of these plays, pause it and rewind the live stream. But I just want to make it quick and easy. Can't go into explaining them any further because we don't have the time. Continuing on, Michael Ortiz says full PPR. Okay, we took care of that. Oh, actually, no, we didn't. Worthy, Waddle, or pick up Odunze? I'm going to be totally honest. At this point, I'd pick up Odunze and I'd play him. Mo Musa sends in a question. Says, both my running backs are on bye this week. I currently have Amir Abdullah since Madison is out. So do I go with that or pick up Estime? No, I'd rather have Abdullah. Absolutely. Both are risky, but Abdullah's in a greater position, in my opinion, to get himself that receiving upside that he should be exposed to over the course of today's game. B-Dog says, Reed or Marvin Harrison Jr. PPR. I'm going to lean towards Reed there. Again, the weather in Marvin Harrison's game is a little bit more concerning. Dominic sends in a question. Dominic says, who has a higher floor/ceiling in a half PPR, Neighbors or Ridley? Ceiling, I believe, is Ridley. Floor is Neighbors. Then in a non-PPR, same thing, but Addison or Worthy. Addison has the higher floor. Worthy has the higher ceiling. Thank you. Regis sends in a question. Says, in a half PPR, start 2, Ridley, Marvin Harrison, and Chuba Hubbard. Let me see where I have Hubbard in comparison to the 2 receivers, and I will tell you right now. Chuba. Chuba is ranked below both of them, so I'll play both the receivers. Thank you. Why Flowers over Downs? They play against the Chargers. Chargers can't stop a soul on defense in terms of the wide receiver position. Downs in itself has got a really tough matchup this week. The Lions have been incredible in terms of defense. Marvin Lewis says, in a standard, May or Richardson, I'd rather play May. But again, I can understand as to why you would play Richardson. If he scores rushing touchdowns, that's where he's going to find his upside of value. But I still do believe in May to be the better play. Dobbs or Thielen, I still believe in Dobbs in that scenario. Otten or Addison in a PPR, I'd rather play Otten there. Twisted Piper. Colin Parker says Hubbard or Moore, I'd rather play Hubbard. Douglas, Schoonmaker, Dobbs, pick 2. I'd rather play in a full PPR. I'll probably just take both the receivers there. AJ, just play both receivers. Kyler or Baker, I prefer Baker. Let's see here. Wade says full PPR, Downs, J.K. Dobbins, or Hopkins in the flex. If I'm playing one of those 3, I believe I have Downs ranked the highest. Let me confirm this. Nope, I do. Well, that's a half PPR. Let me go back to full. Yeah, I have Josh Downs ranked the highest of the group in a full PPR weight. So it would go Downs 1, Hopkins, Downs 1, Downs 1, Dobbins 2, Hopkins 3. Sorry, my brain is lagging. Nick Porter sends in a question. Says, in a PPR, who do I trade? Reed for Sutton or Rome? I'd rather trade Reed for Sutton if I'm going to trade him. Thank you. Metcalf or Brian Robinson in a half PPR. B for work. Play Brian Robinson there. Diamond Jim says Bucky or Neighbors. I'll play Bucky there. Just Memory says Kate Otten or Josh Downs. Depends on scoring format, truly. If it's a full PPR, I think I'm going to play Downs regardless, but I think there's a justification for Kate Otten in a full PPR. You think Evans will be a factor today? I think he scores a touchdown today. That's how confident I am. Rashad White or Ridley in a half PPR? I'd rather play Ridley there. Mark. Mo sends in a question. Says, for rest of season, Wilson, May, or Cousins? Great question. For rest of season purposes, I think it's very much so schedule dependent. Let me see what the Falcons look like in terms of... Personally, I would like to play Kirk Cousins in the fantasy playoffs. I like their upcoming schedule in that sequence. The second best, I think, of those available would probably be playing Wilson, then May 3rd. Thank you. But May obviously has his rushing upside, which could be a factor. But I'd probably go with Cousins weeks 15 and 16. I like those matchups a lot against Las Vegas and against New York Giants. Hakeem says, start 3. CD, JMO, Jennings, Sutton. CD number 1, Sutton number 2, JMO number 3. Moving on, half PPR. Got it. Understood. Niner86 says, I need one flex in a half PPR, Neighbors or Hubbard. Let me see where I have Hubbard in comparison, and I'll tell you right now. I have Neighbors slightly ahead. I'm going to take Neighbors there. But if you want to play Hubbard, again, I can understand as to why you would do so. My only concern is Kansas City matchup, which again, if we want to talk about the fantasy points they've allowed to opposing running backs over the course of this season, specifically at running back, if we talk about a half PPR scoring format, they have only 4 times this season allowed over 10 fantasy points to a singular running back. James Cook, Rashad White, Bijan Robinson, and Derrick Henry. Those are the only running backs that have scored over 10 points against them in fantasy. All of them have scored touchdowns. If Hubbard doesn't score a touchdown, he will not eclipse 10 points today. Thank you. Moving on to a question it comes in from Basil Abdullah, who says, Quentin Johnston, Rome Odunze, Marvin Harrison, pick 1 PPR or pick 2 bench Kyron. Nope, I'm going to play Kyron, and I'm also going to play probably, let me see, in a PPR, where do I have Quentin Johnston? Let me see. In a PPR, Quentin Johnston. Yeah, I still have him below Marvin Harrison by 1 spot. So we'll take Marvin and Kyron there. That works, Basil. Tyree sends in a question. Thank you, Tyree. Says PPR, Downs or Abdullah. I'd rather play Downs there. Or Kate Otten and Dallas Goedert. I'll take, in a full PPR, I am playing Downs and Dallas Goedert. Those are the 2 that I would play out of the 4 that you mentioned. Thank you. Greg Z123 says flex Rico, Dobbs, Douglas, Watson, or Lockett in a half PPR. Out of those available options, I'm playing Romeo Dobbs. Thank you. CG sends in a question. CG, I don't see your question attached, so hopefully you type in the live chat so we can get to addressing your question. Thank you. DD sends in a question. Says 0.25 PPR, Swift or Reed? I'd rather play Swift there. If it's pretty much not even a PPR format, I'd rather just go with the running back just for the volume of touches in itself. Laporta or Hawkinson rest of season, full PPR? I'd rather have Hawkinson, to be totally honest, there, Rugby. Okay, 26 bands. I'm going to play Flowers above all else there, 26. Paul C says, flex Marvin Harrison or Pollard in a PPR. I believe I have Marvin Harrison. Let's see here. Full PPR. Flex rankings. I have Marvin Harrison 2 spots ahead of Pollard. I could justify playing Pollard because of the weather. If you want to play him, let's go for it. I don't mind that at all. I'd be up for it. Diego says, what's up, Andrew? In a full PPR, Neighbors or Abdullah? I'd much rather play Neighbors. Thank you. Alrighty. Easy E in the chat says, Andrew, getting shadow banned, change question, but still not working. Easy E, let me see if I can find your question in the chat. Easy E. Says, Shakir's available on waivers. Would you drop any of these for rest of season? D-Hop, Devontae Adams, J-Mo. Yeah, honestly, I would. I would drop D-Hop in order to pick up Shakir for rest of season. Absolutely. I'd even be willing to drop J-Mo for that. You weren't getting shadow banned. I just didn't look up your question for a while. I completely forgot that we even had to address your question. My bad there, Easy. Again, usually when there's nothing attached to the first question, I just, I get sidetracked. CG, where are you at? CG, type in your question, please, and thank you. Don't see it in the live chat yet. Dior Kev, what's up, Dior? Says flex full PPR, Josh Downs, Jaden Reed, or Rashad White. Out of those 3 options, I'm probably... Okay, so here's the thing. Rashad White, I'm expecting that to be a positive game script in which there'll be less receiving upside for him. So I don't expect him to find as much upside as he has in the last couple of weeks. Josh Downs has a difficult matchup. Jaden Reed is taking on an offense that, again, is outside of, without Brock Purdy there, I believe it's going to grant more opportunities for the Packers offense. And in that circumstance, Reed should be the best of the 3 when, again, they're at home in a favorable matchup against the defense that is going to be put on the field in many of sequences in which, again, once they're 3 and outing, it will give more chances. Now, again, whether or not, really between the 3 of them, it's just a matter of who scores the touchdown, which I'm assuming it'll be Reed. We're going to talk about upside of that. Mateo says, White or Pollard? I'd rather play Pollard. Oh, in a full PPR? Oh, that changes everything. Let me see here. White or Pollard in a full PPR? No, I still have Pollard. Never mind. Marcel says, Hawkinson, Disley, or Jonnu rest of season? I'd still rather have Hawkinson rest of season. Why Baker over Kyler? Kyler's playing in the rain. Start Westbrook, Ikine, or Thielen in a half PPR? I'd rather play Westbrook, Ikine. Javier says McConkey, Jennings, Kittle, or Aaron Jones, full PPR pick 2. I'm playing McConkey and Aaron Jones there, Javier Garza. Simi says, damn, my question's not working. I see that, so I don't know what you're talking about, brother. Hakeem sends in a question. Thank you. Hakeem says, which defense do I start, Ravens or Commanders? This week, it's not even close. I'm 1,000% of the time going to play the Commanders. If I was to play out every single universe, very seldom would I ever roll with the Ravens this weekend, especially when the Commanders take on the Cowboys of all teams, you know? Adrian says, Ridley or Rashad White in the flex? I'd rather just play Ridley there. Shane sends in a question. Says, flex Zay Flowers or Javonte Williams PPR? I'd rather play Zay Flowers. Thank you. Abdullah or Waddle? I'm probably going to play Abdullah in a half PPR, Waddle in a full. CG says, hey, should I start Mahomes or Herbert? You could have just typed in your question in the live chat, CG. You didn't have to send in another super, but I do appreciate that, my man. CG says, should I start Mahomes or Herbert? Or out of the 4 running backs, who should I start in flex? Okay, so between Mahomes and Herbert, I'd prefer to play Herbert. Then as for the 4 running backs you have, let me see what we have on roster. You have Barkley. Let's see here. Got to refresh the page just so that I catch up. Okay, so you have Barkley, Kyron, Hubbard, Swift. Okay, yeah. Okay, so this is the way that I would go about it. I prefer Herbert over Mahomes. Additionally, in the order at which I would rank those running backs, it is Barkley 1, Kyron 2, Hubbard 3, Swift 4. Then as for Otton and Bowers, you are auto-starting Bowers. Thank you. Eli sends in a question, says Abdullah or Waddle. In a full PPR, I think I'm going to... No, I don't think. I know I'm going to play Waddle there. Jonnu or Laporta, I would prefer to play Jonnu there. Start 1 Hopkins, Dell, or Myers, full PPR. I'd rather just play Dell there out of the bunch. Yeah, sounds good to me. Tracy or Aaron Jones, PPR. McLovin, I'm going to play Tracy there. Simi says, I have Tua, Tyreek, A-Chance starting. No other quarterback options. Please help, brother. Is that a bad idea? No, absolutely not. Brother, that's your... Listen... You know what's hilarious? You said you have no other options. Shit, be confident with it then. Let's go. We're cheering for the Dolphins today. There's no reason for you to over-concern yourself with something that you can't control. That's your best quarterback. Tyreek Hill and Achane are top 5, 6 wide receivers and running backs. You have no concerns at all there. DeVito or Brandon Allen? I'd rather have DeVito. Dowdle or Abdullah? I'd rather play Abdullah in a full PPR, Dowdle in a half. Josh Downs has difficult matchup. Yeah, I agree. He does. Taking on Detroit is not an easy walk in the park, guys. I don't care what you guys think. Detroit's defense is fucking elite. Kiwi Sportsmate says half PPR. Playing Brian Robinson Jr. Reed Jennings, Downs, JSN. Which one? If you're going to play Brian Robinson, yes, I would play Brian Robinson over all of them. And then the next best available option will be playing JSN. Lenny V23 says Goff or Kyler. If you're worried about the weather, you could pivot off of Kyler to Goff, but I'm going to play Kyler there. If it was my team, I'm rolling Kyler. Stoic says, why do we have Evans over Puka? Why do you have Evans over Puka? What? What are you talking about? I'm so confused. Is your brain lagging or is it mine? Because if you look at the rankings that are going to pop up right here in about 6, 5, 4, 3, and now. And, all right, the fucking thing's not going to switch. There it is. Mike Evans, 12. Puka, 6. Brother, what are you talking about? Are you cooked? Notice Moody wasn't in the rankings. Yeah, swap off of him. Play anybody else. Play Jason Sanders. Yes, Shahir. Play Jason Sanders. Dan Hart says, hey, Watson, Addison, or Worthy? As it currently stands in a half PPR, the rankings were just on screen. Between those 3 players that you just mentioned, between Worthy and Addison, those are the 2 best available in my opinion. As for the 2, I would rather play Addison over Worthy this week. Thank you. Bucky Irving or Marvin Harrison? Luke, I'd rather play Bucky, to be totally honest. If Vlad misses, do we like Baker over Herbert or not significant? Baker plays today in about 6 minutes and Herbert plays tomorrow. Play Herbert. Thank you. I don't think it's a significant difference, but if you want to just, again, I don't have a concern. If you want to make an audible switch, you can. I'm not going to be doing so. Bucky over Dobbins. Yes. Drop Darnold for Geno. That sounds good to me. All right, everybody. I think that's pretty much it. Love or Kyler? Again, the rankings are on screen. A lot of the questions you guys are asking can be answered very easily just with patience and looking at the screen to the right. Sup, Andrew? Pick one. Superflex. Reed, Debo, or Hawkinson. I don't think Superflex matters in this circumstance, but I'm playing Reed there. Luis Garcia says Abdullah or Sanders in the flex. I'd rather play Abdullah. Luke Farrell says, hey, okay, that sounds good. Ram G says full PPR, Evans or Tracy. I'd rather play Evans. James King says Juwan Jennings, Wandale Robinson, or Rome Odunze. I'd rather play Juwan Jennings there, King James. Nick L says two of these, Flowers, Tyrone, McLaurin. Give me both receivers. Itoza says, hope the Giants and Tommy Cutlets can sneak out a win. There's no shot, brother. There's no shot. Honestly, you don't want the Giants to win. In the best interest of your Giants, you lose every game henceforth. You get a top 3 NFL pick and you draft a quarterback and one that's actually going to make an impact. Story says Swift or Hopkins in a half PPR. I'd rather have Swift on my roster or in my lineup, excuse me. No, I'm saying you originally this week had Evans over Puka. Yeah, I understand that. Yeah. That's what you were saying. Okay. Now I understand, Stoke. I was about to say, I was like, what are you talking about, brother? I'm like, you're making me confused. Because I thought like I maybe messed up my rankings on screen. I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, did I accidentally use the wrong like panel or did I copy paste wrong? So you got me scared for a second. I was like, what the heck? JSN or Reed, PPR. I'd rather play JSN. Bo Nix or Jared Goff, I'd rather play Bo Nix. Kittle or Swift in the flex, I'd rather play Swift. Alex Reyes says, full PPR, who am I flexing? Rashad White, Debo Samuel, Hubbard, or JMO? Out of those options in a full PPR, I'm going to play Rashad White, honestly. DK or Ladd McConkey, PPR. At this point, considering your uncertainty, you could probably... I mean, look, personally, I have Ladd McConkey ranked higher. That's how I'm going to go about it. But if you want to play DK, you can, in order to avoid whatever risk you believe there is. Itoza says, I don't have any of these quarterbacks out of... personally, would love the Giants to trade down and sign Darnold. Oh, you know what they'll probably do? They're going to sign Aaron Rodgers next year. Watch. Hawkinson or Abdullah? I'd rather play Hawkinson. Minshew or DeVito in the Superflex? I'd rather have Minshew. Luis Garcia says 2-minute drill. That's right, 2-minute drill. Rashad White or Bucky or Jonathan Brooks? Leezy, it's not even close. It's Rashad White by a metric fuck ton. Thank you. Rambler Man says, okay, so he's talking to somebody else, and then this person wants to get banned, get out of here. Thank you. Happy Sunday, Andrew. What does it say? It's getting cut off because I had to ban this person. Happy Sunday, Andrew. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, guys. I think that's where we're going to call it. I appreciate y'all. Great stream. I appreciate y'all coming through. Oh, we had Anthony Campos. Final question of the day. He says, do I play Kittle or do I play Disley? I play Disley today. Thank you. Again, I appreciate y'all. For those of you who joined, asked questions, answered questions, sends in super chat, click the like button, all of the above. I appreciate y'all. Brian Colorado sent in a super, nothing attached to it. Somebody asked Ravens defense or Packers defense. It's not close. I'm playing the Packers. In a standard league, do I play Tank Dell or Downs? I'd rather play Tank Dell in a standard. Let's see. Cheers, Andrew. Thank you, Rooster. I appreciate it. Brian Colorado says just here to say, okay, thank you very much, Brian. I appreciate that, guys. Okay. That's where I'm going to call it. I'm cueing the music and I'm sending it off. I'm going to watch 8 hours of commercial-free Red Zone in order to enjoy the rest of my Sunday. I hope you guys do the same. Have a great rest of your wonderful Week 12. Let's hope for, of course, some upside performances. Let's have some fucking shootouts, shall we? Please, for the love of the fantasy gods, can we get some fucking shootouts? Thank you, everybody, for watching. And until tomorrow, I'll see you guys. Peace.